All right. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our Stephen King podcast, as well as primarily the podcast about the magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, which, of course, has a lot more oomph behind it now, what with Flanagan's announcement there at the tail end of the year. So,
whoop, whoop.
But we're here live. Looks like we have a couple people in the chat. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining us, guys and girls, potentially. I don't know who's all in here yet, but we have some regulars. And I know it's definitely a different time than normal.
Yes.
A little early and weird. We'll be finishing up about the time before we would even start normally.
Yeah.
So probably the weirdest time shift we've ever had.
We did one early, didn't we? So
I don't think it's been this early.
I thought it was.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't. This feels weird. If we have, it's probably been a while.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining us, Mike. Welcome. Let's see. Oh, Bart in the chat as well. Long time no see indeed. Bart, I don't remember. I know you've emailed a number of times. I don't know if have you joined us on the chat before. This might be a first time potentially.
Hey.
But of course, you've emailed a number of times.
From Belgium.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it is probably more friendly to the Europe side being all early like this. Carol, Heil.
First time.
Welcome everyone to 2023 Agamorphy. A happy year is what we're hoping for here.
A Flanagan year.
A happy Flanagan year is what we're all hoping for here.
A news filled with Flanagan.
Yeah, that's the hope indeed. So, let's go ahead and hit the intro, and we can start the podcast side. I know I already did kind of an intro here, but let's get the old podcast people involved as well.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are Ka-Tet, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter, president of the #TadIsTerrible Club.
Again, we've got a Billy Bumbler infestation here.
So, just to give you guys a little what was going on there. If you're watching live or if you're watching the YouTube video, during the intro, you can see Tad did something that made me laugh. He pointed at his little Steam Deck that he has all his sound effects on. Give him an oi.
Yeah.
Pushes a button and that happens. He pointed at it and I moved my headphone. He goes, I missed my oi button.
The one from last episode.
The one from last episode with the lid.
I did delete it, as I said I would.
Yeah.
Happy New Year to everyone. It doesn't feel like New Year anymore. It's 14 days in.
I know, right?
New for the podcast, certainly. And I don't know. Some people say Happy New Year well into January. But yeah, it is for us our first 2023 episode. So as we were saying on the YouTube side before we started the podcast here, we're hoping this is going to be a happy Flanagan year 2023. So I even said yesterday on our Patreon hangout, you know, what'd be awesome is if we got like a green light before spring.
Oh yeah,
that would be
like even before we start March Madness. All of a sudden we get a green light. We just throw March Madness out the window and just start talking about it.
No, and no, the one thing that I was thinking about, and this is of course putting you on the spot a little bit, is
go on.
For the March Madness, we've done some different things over the years to like update people because we only have 2 episodes or whatever. So I'm thinking, if you don't mind, I'll just do it myself on YouTube and just pop in and do the updates and
do a little update and just
I mean we'll do the
I don't
updates.
mind that.
We'll do the updates we can with you, along with episodes. But having weekly pop-ins to update the March Madness.
Breaking news from Tad Winter.
Yeah, and
Only if you get like the old timey sound effects to go with it, like the telegraph sound and everything, like a telegrap's coming through.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we have. 1 month from now, basically, the roundtable that we have in February, we will unveil the final bracket for that, and then we will launch March Madness on the 1st of March. So we'll have each round will be a week and kind of go through.
The Madness of March.
Yeah, I guess we got to be careful. March Madness.
Yeah, we'll call it the March, the Madness of March to avoid copyright.
But they've copyrighted everything. Even Final Four is
Yeah.
copyrighted by
Yeah.
them. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like every tournament has a Final Four. Sweet 16, I think is well, that's basketball though, or that is all basketball. They own that. I think they own the copyright on that too.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four.
That's nonsense.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the intro stuff real quick. We want to warn you about spoilers. This is a roundtable, so we will spoil everything. We don't do it on purpose, but it always happens.
It
so
does.
if you haven't finished the 7 primary books of the Dark Tower series, you may want to hold off on this episode. Listen to our book club episodes. We keep with those ones. We stay where we're at or before, except for the very, very end. We have a small section that is spoiler section, but it is very quarantined off
And very obvious.
You will have, if you're watching, the screen will turn bright red, and you will have a very distinct audio thing that plays. So there's no way to just accidentally stumble into the spoiler section.
You should just start pushing the spoiler button whenever you do that during a regular roundtable.
If it wasn't as long as it was, maybe.
Oh, a little
but
short. Get a little short one.
Yeah, just like a quick 2-3
Spoilers,
seconds.
spoilers.
Just get like a robot just repeating it over and over like Andy the robot.
That he's shutting down and just spoilers.
Everyone loves Andy, right?
No. No.
But then also, if you want to find us, you can find us on Apple Podcasting. You can stream us on Spotify or Stitcher, or you can find us on pretty much any podcasting service. You can also now find us on Amazon Music and Audible. Apparently, I knew Amazon Music was moving into it, but apparently Audible as well is moved into the podcasting realm. So we are now on there as well. And then if you want to...
I checked the other day. We have 1 review on Audible.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say next is if you want to subscribe, rate, and review us on any of those services that you happen to use, we would appreciate that. And then if you want to join us live, as we've already mentioned a couple times, we're here on YouTube. We have a few people here in the chat with us that are joining us live. And if you want to be part of that, you can come over to youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. Then if you want to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because like, for instance, this episode, we are recording fairly early compared to what we would normally be recording. So the notifications are a good way to know, like, oh, hey, we'll be done before we would normally start.
Yep.
On a normal week. But you could do all that, and you can follow along with us and be part of the group here in the chat that can, send emojis here to get Peter all mad and whatnot, which is, of course, what I condone, is plenty of emojis in the chat, which I already see some. Agamorphy and Bart both have given us emojis. Thank you for that.
Bart from Belgium. It's just so satisfying to say that. Bart from Belgium. It rolls off the tongue. Bart from Belgium.
Yeah, and emojis, just for Peter's sake.
No, we don't talk about emojis.
Yeah.
No emojis.
Did your daughter ever con you into watching the Emoji Movie?
No, but she said last night that she loves it. We were looking for a movie to watch, and she's like, we were just like going through streaming services, and Emoji Movie came up, and she's like, I love that movie, and I just went, good.
Yeah. Do the Sideshow Bob grumble. And then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. Everything we're going to cover in this episode I'll have links to over there, so you can go and check out the articles that we are talking about, as well as all things Dark Tower Palaver. You can find pretty much links to everything Dark Tower Palaver there. That is the proverbial spoke in the hub of Dark Tower Palaver. Yeah. That is our tower, I guess. You can go and find connections to everything. You can find all of our links to all the stuff that you would want to find for Dark Tower Palaver, as well as our new questions for new listeners. If you want to email those in, we actually do have one, but we won't be covering it today because basically last time went so long we ended up covering none of the emails, so all the emails this episode will be the ones that were technically meant for last episode's thing. So
last year's emails.
Yeah, but at the same time though, like honestly, I still feel like this episode's going to be kind of an overflow for Flanagan talk.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be a big conversation probably going forward as well. So then if you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. As I mentioned, we do monthly hangouts. We have a Discord server if you want to. We were just debating the the realm of what the Jedi are, whether they're good or evil, in the Patreon this morning, as well as some fan castings we were talking about. So you have access to all that with all the Dark Tower Palaver Patreon side, and you can find that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. Then if you want to contact us, you can do that in a number of ways that Peter can let you know.
Best way to reach us is like we've already talked about. It's email. So email us. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. And then we have our social medias. It's Twitter is @DarkTowerPod. That's @DarkTowerPod. And then our Facebook is just facebook.com/DarkTowerPalaver. Our Instagram is DarkTowerPalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then if you want to get any of our merchandise, you can get this one, #TadIsTerrible. Or you can get the original one where it says Dark Tower Palaver, like Tad's wearing. You can check that out. It's tpublic.com/user/DarkTowerPalaver.
The non-slanderous one here.
The #TadIsTerrible, the truth one.
Oh, you got to check the chat there, sir. Got some episode 3 quoting in the chat there.
In my opinion, the Jedi are evil.
And then my response there.
Then you're no. You two, stop it. It's too early for that kind of shenanigans.
Oh no, not at all. It is never too early to torment you, sir.
So Tad never told me that he was doing the lights in the office here until one day I walked in. He's like, "Hey, do this," and I turned it on, and his was automatically set to red. Mine are automatically set to blue, which is just perfect because Tad's evil. He's a Sith, and I'm a Jedi, and I'm blue.
I don't know about evil. We won't get into that here.
Also, microphone color. I mean, it's just kind of like you're doing it on purpose a little bit here.
Oh, man. All right, so we've got a few things to cover. Let's go. Or actually, calendar-wise, we're pretty much on a normal schedule here. I actually didn't look ahead too far to see where, because usually there's a couple months that we have 3 episodes. Looks like July.
Oh.
And then December again. So those are the episodes that will have 3 months, or episodes that have 3 episodes, months that have 3 episodes. Everything else is 2 episodes. We have a roundtable, and then we have 100% officially moved to unless Flanagan stuff changes that.
Yes.
As of right now, we are doing roundtable book clubs every other episode. If, of course, the Flanagan series gets a green light, that may have to change.
And what that means is, Tad and I have discussed it, is that we have not set anything in stone because we don't know what we're going to be looking at. How long production's going to be, how long and everything like that. But we are both willing to make changes to the schedule for Dark Tower Palaver to accommodate a Flanagan series. If that means weekly shows, like if it's a weekly episodic thing, we've already talked.
Yeah,
about
and what
that.
you're talking there is the actual show is airing.
Even in pre-production, we talked about that. We might have to do more episodes. I mean, we did it with the movie.
We did it with the movie, yeah.
We did what, like 3 or 4 emergency shows?
Yeah.
We did one when the trailer dropped. We did one when the set photos leaked. We did one
Castings.
when the EW.
Yeah.
We did one when casting. Yeah, so we did 3 or 4 shows there.
Yeah.
With
Now, the thing is if it ends up being Amazon, as I predict, does Amazon drop everything all at
they
once?
do weekly.
I think they dropped, because Jack Ryan was all dropped at once.
The Boys is weekly.
That might be the only one.
The Boys, Ring of Power is weekly.
Oh, I didn't watch
as
that.
well as Wheel of Time is weekly. Because
Okay,
I kept getting ads saying, check out the new episode.
I hope it's weekly, because for our sake, I could not imagine trying to, digest 10 or 12, 13, whatever episodes all at once. I don't know how we would even do that as a podcast. That would be
honestly,
a nightmare.
we talked about this, and this is just another behind-the-scenes thing that Tad and I talked about, is that, honestly, we were talking about if it is an all-in-one, if it's 10 episodes, we might do one episode is episodes 1 and 2. Next episode is 3 and 4, and then that way it gives people time to watch. They know which ones to watch, and then to listen to our show corresponding to them and everything. But that's not happened yet, so we gotta.
Yeah, and I mean
we're excited.
We don't even have a green light. This is as much speculation as our fan casting, but we have talked about all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And
we're
then
ready.
Bart says weekly or not, I just hope we can see it here across the pond. And that's why I think the Amazon would be the best choice, because I do believe Amazon has the largest footprint worldwide. Maybe Netflix compares, but I don't want it anywhere near Netflix with those canceling bastards. Let's go ahead and dive in then real quick. So the first article we have here is an interesting one. So this one, new novelist gets support from Stephen King, Margaret Atwood, and more after sad tweet about book signing. This is from Valerie Nome from Yahoo on December 6, 2023. This kind of went a little viral, and I felt it was worth sharing. And also, it's kind of a positive, I guess, in a lot of ways. And what better way to start the year than a positive story?
Yeah.
So Chelsea Banning was disappointed when only 2 people showed up to a signing event for her debut fantasy novel, but not for long. The book of Crowns and Legends leapt to number 1 in its genre on Amazon after Banning's tweet about the low turnout at Pretty Good Books in Ishtabula, Ohio, on Saturday, and the tweet went viral. The tweet said, "Only 2 people came to my author signing yesterday, so I was pretty bummed about it." Banning tweeted Sunday morning, especially as 37 people responded going to the event. Kind of upset, honestly, and a little embarrassed. So definitely not a happy thing.
Yeah.
And then it goes on here and says she considered deleting the post later, but then she told NPR that she changed her mind when she saw the amazing response on Twitter, which included comforting words from some of the most successful authors in the world, as well as her favorite writers like Neil Gaiman, Robin Hobb, and Jodi Picoult. And then it goes on here with a quote from her as she's talking to NPR. She says, "I stayed up until 1 a.m. In complete shock, just watching it happen." And so here's some of the tweets that came her direction in response. And the first one is from Cy King. And he tweeted, he says, "At my first Salem's Lot signing, I had one customer, a fat kid who said, 'Hey, bud, do you know where there are some Nazi books?'"
Oh, gee, what?
So yeah, that's brutal. And then joining the club, Margaret Atwood responded, "I did a signing in which nobody came except a guy who wanted to buy some Scotch tape and thought I was the help," and then has a smiley emoji there. So I mean, I think it's funny for these because they end up being like world-renowned, famous authors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could imagine in those moments that probably wasn't fun.
No.
And then Henry Winkler, the Fonz,
Hey.
responded, got in on the action and wrote, "That is the beginning. Then word got out and they come." So he's just giving some pep talk type stuff. And then probably the most random that I could possibly imagine. If I were to tell you some support tweet came and I gave you 100 guesses, you would never get this one. Flava Flav tweeted and offered to make sure that basically to make sure the next event was a success. He said, "Yo, here's to hype up your next signing," he tweeted. So just kind of giving more, I guess, putting more eyeballs on it all. And then it goes on and says, "Of Crowns and Legends is the first book in a trilogy about children of the legendary King Arthur. According to NPR, she worked on it for 15 years before publishing it in August. With the support she has received, it is now the top spot in Amazon's bestsellers list for Arthurian fantasy." So looks like it is her sales have gone to the moon. And then she says, "I shared my vulnerability, which doesn't happen a lot on social media." Banning told the Insider of the overwhelming response, especially with how rampant imposter syndrome is with writers. Sharing how the downs as well as the ups shows that we all go through and we share similar struggles. Banning, who now works as a librarian in Ohio, started writing flash fiction in the 10th grade, according to her website. Adding to those stories, eventually bloomed into novels. The experience of going viral for her tweet and the attention it brought to her novel has taught Banning a lesson. It's okay to have feelings, she told NPR. "We're not alone in this, and don't let them hold you back." Which it says then at the last line here, which means, of course, she hopes to hold another book signing.
Yeah.
So, I actually saw this all happen real time because Stephen King's retweet of it and his thing. I was like, the hell? And then I went through and looked. I didn't see all the responses, but I did see Stephen King's. And it's like, the crazy thing is Salem's Lot's book 2 in his pantheon.
Yeah, Carrie.
And Carrie was a hit. So that's crazy to me that,
Certainly not enough of a hit for people to come out.
I mean, ultimately, he wasn't like the absolute, like The Shining's his absolute biggest hit. That was where whatever, but Carrie put him on the map for a lot of publishers. Obviously the movie and all that kind of stuff coming along put his name out there for a lot of people. But yeah, that's crazy to think about for Stephen King. Imagine getting a time machine and going back to that book signing.
Imagine if you could get his autograph that early on a first edition
of of
Salem's Lot.
Ooh. I mean, I would probably be holding myself out for looking for a Dark Tower Gunslinger first edition, because that is probably one of the more valuable outside of those really offshoot things like the
Isn't there a misprint
Asbestos. Firestarter with the
right.
asbestos cover, but I don't think they made a lot of those. I think those
No.
only like 5 or 10 of those are ever made. So, but I mean, and not that a lot of Gunslingers were published. I think there's only like 10,000 published. That's part of it, but yeah, that would be.
Wasn't there one that had a misprint of some sort? Like they did Stephen wrong or something like that, where it's
not that I know
with
of.
a PH instead of with a V or something.
Not that I know of.
We looked it up one time. One of the most valuable Stephen King books, and the asbestos. Firestarter was one of them, and I thought there was one that had it. It wasn't on the cover, but I think it was in the title page. They had the name typed wrong or something.
I don't recall.
I don't
that.
know. I'll have to look it up.
If we covered that, I've completely forgotten. So, but yeah, that's just a fun little story. Like I said, kind of a happy story. All the best luck to her and her writing. She obviously got a lot of encouraging words from some pretty successful people, and it's kind of like, I think it's kind of like one of those things where like you hear about like, oh, this like massively popular band like was playing a bar and they got thrown out because like the bartender thought that they played like shit and stuff. Like,
yeah,
you always hear those kind of stories. So it's kind of cool to hear it in the book realm. And now moving as well, kind of actually sticking in the early Stephen King realm, but this is actually adaptation-wise. The title of this one is This Stephen King Classic has been added to the National Film Registry, and here is why that is important. And this is from Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central on December 14th, 2023. And let's see. Did I miss anything in the chat here? I guess Mike did say about the Dark Tower better be 19 episodes. Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath on that. I think more likely I would guess 8 to 12 is my prediction.
Yeah.
And even 12, that's probably going high, but yeah, it's 8 to 10.
Yeah.
I just think that's normal anymore. Because even 13 used to be kind of normal there for a while, but I feel like a lot of it's moved. Do you know what Ring of Power was? I think a lot of them are like 10 episodes or less now. But yeah, I wouldn't count on 19. That's like old school TV. Let's see. Anything else I missed in the chat?
There was a question on something that was behind her in the picture, whether it's from a video game. It's called a Pip-Boy. And then...
I can go back. I don't know what that is.
It's a little wrist thing from Fallout. So it's on the right side of the screen.
Is it there then?
It looks like it, yeah. And then Carol says she read it on NPR last week because I'm a nerd. That's great.
Yeah.
And then Bart says 8 for Ring of Power, I believe. And yeah, confirmed. I looked it up online. It is 8 episodes for Ring of Power season 1.
Okay. Yeah, so I wouldn't count. I'm counting on probably 8 to 10 is kind of what I would guess. Of course we don't know. We don't know what where it might end up. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like that's kind of normal nowadays, especially for a bigger expensive show like this. This isn't just like they build like 1 or 2 sets, like a house and a workplace and then like a sitcom, and they can just reuse them over and over. So I wouldn't imagine it would be a lot of episodes. But let's go on over this article here. It starts off and says, they're not all going to laugh at her now, mother. Brian De Palma's adaptation of Stephen King's novel Carrie has been added to the National Film Registry, an honor that the young telekinetic girl should be proud of. And it says the National Film Registry releases 25 new additions to the list every year, which are, quote, selected for their cultural, historic, and aesthetic importance to preserve the nation's film heritage. So yeah, that's kind of a big deal. This isn't just like, not to like whatever, but even like these award shows and stuff, they're all so whatever. But to be in the film registry, you're actually, I don't know, that's a pretty big thing. And it says horror films are historically snubbed by the larger film canon. So seeing a film like Carrie included not only acknowledges the power of horror cinema, but the level of craft involved in creating an amazing horror film. The inclusion of De Palma's film is further recognition of the effects genre cinema has on cultural consciousness. Carrie joins a few other horror titles to be included in the library, and literally it lists the other horror movies that are actually in this. It's not many. The Exorcist, Alien, Psycho, Rosemary's Baby, Dracula, Bride of Frankenstein, The Shining, and Nightmare on Elm Street. So
another King.
It's not very common for horror. I could say there's probably at least 20 that should be in there, in my opinion, as a big horror fan.
I mean, Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, Halloween for sure. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that there's so few there. I'm glad to see The Exorcist on there though. That's a good one too. De Palma adapted the source material into the 1976 film starring Sissy Spacek as Carrie and Piper Laurie as her mother. Both earned the Academy Award nominations for their role as lead and supporting actresses respectively. And if we've talked about that before, I've forgotten that they were both nominated for Academy Awards. That's kind of a big deal. Yeah, I mean, I know they didn't win because the only winner is Kathy Bates for a Stephen King work. But I didn't realize that both of them were nominated. Or if we've covered it before and I've actually mentioned that, then I've completely forgotten. So that's crazy. The imagery alone in the film, notably Carrie absolutely soaked in pig's blood, makes it a horror staple and a tale of revenge, cruelty, and finding empowerment in the wrong places. Now, one thing I would say there is, I think we've talked before, Pennywise is probably the most iconic King creation. But if you branch out and include the adaptations, I think Carrie's in the top few, man.
So is Jack from
The Shining. Yeah, I'd say The Shining.
Yeah.
And I would even say that Shining and Carrie might top it because it was a television thing. It came so much later. It only came out in 1990 versus 1980 and 1976. Like, you've had decades for those, because that Carrie thing, it's iconic. You see it all the time. If you see like those little things where they'll chop together like 10 seconds of different horror images, like Carrie's almost always in there.
The drenched in blood is what you're talking about.
Yeah, her covered in blood. It's just, and it's been spoofed a million times.
Jack with the axe, the Here's Johnny, and everything like that.
Yeah. I think those two, just if nothing else, time has added a lot to those. And I would just say, I think that's an interesting debate. Is especially with this, I mean, to show how, and The Shining's in there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's just such an iconic thing, especially that end portion. Yeah. I feel like people have never even seen it. It's kind of like Jaws, right? People that have never seen Jaws know how to hum the Jaws theme. I feel like the idea of seeing Carrie, even if they don't know the full extent of what's going on, I think people kind of know that element. And that shows a lot to De Palma's filmmaking too, because it's so iconic. It's stood the test of time for 50 years now almost. So and then the last thing here, the National Film Registry said about Carrie. So this is what the official people actually said. It says Brian De Palma stands as an icon of the new wave filmmakers who remade Hollywood and its filmmaking conventions beginning in the 1960s and 70s. After some intriguing independent efforts, De Palma burst onto the national spotlight with Carrie. Never one to feature subtlety in his films, De Palma mixes the stylish cauldron of horror scenes in Carrie, adapted from the Stephen King novel. Combine a teen outcast with the telekinetic powers facing abuse from cruel classmates and a domineering religious mother, and you have a breeding ground for revenge with the comeuppance delivered in a no-holds-barred prom massacre. The flamboyant visual flair and the use of countless cinema techniques may occasionally seem overdone, but the film's influences remains undeniable to this day, often cited by other critics and filmmakers for its impact on the horror genre. And that as well. I mean, when you see like modern horror filmmakers, so many of them reference Carrie as one of their most like things that inspire them. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's an awesome thing. And I don't know when The Shining was put in, but whether it was during the time of our show, maybe it was before we covered all things King and we were more Dark Tower only focused, or maybe it was even way further back. But pretty cool. Congratulations.
Put it in 2018.
Okay, so I don't know how we missed that. And I don't know how we missed the news on that one.
I pulled up the list to try and see if I could sort and look by like how many Stephen Kings have been put in, but it's by year that it was added, so I just have to search each individual Stephen King thing to see if it's in there.
Yeah.
I'm imagining there's not many in there.
Carol says, is The Shining in there? Yes. The Shining is the only other one that's Stephen King. And then Ryan says Alien is the best anyway. I am, as one that grew up with aliens, I have often fought very hard against the, I guess I've always fought the Aliens is better than Alien. But man, as I'm getting older, that's getting less and less
You're
clear.
flip-flopping
to
on
me.
a couple of your opinions. I saw your post yesterday about Interstellar and Inception.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah,
Tad,
But
what's going on
but
here?
Alien, man, it is so good, and it's like it is a true horror movie too.
It is.
And as a horror fan, I don't know why I didn't give it as much credit as a young child, but
It's true.
Terminator or Aliens 2, it's kind of like or Aliens and Terminator 2. It's like I love both of those.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, I'm able to look back on the first movies of both those series and see like, God, those are good fucking horror
Really
movies,
good
man.
horror movies.
As a kid, I didn't appreciate them as much. For horror, I just wanted Jason and Michael butchering a bunch of teenagers that were being promiscuous. Let's see. And then Agamorphy says the Wednesday series has a huge nod to Carrie. There was something else recently. God, what was it? Oh, was it the new Stranger Things? Because King actually called it out, where he's like, "Oh, I kind of saw their."
There was a school dance, and there was a fight that happened at a school dance.
Okay, if that's what it was, I feel like there was something in the last like 6 months that was like a kind of a cool nod to Carrie.
No, there really was, because I remember like I did like the DiCaprio meme. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess because they were like the girls were bullying her and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like when she hits the one in the face with the skate and stuff. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
there was a number of things that were very Carrie-esque in that, and that's what it was probably then.
Carrie also became a Broadway musical, Agamorphy says.
Yes. Yeah. I think we talked about that as a secondary thing because there was something in the last year or so where they were adapting The Shining as a Broadway musical. And when we were covering that, somebody mentioned that it wouldn't be the first time a King thing has been a Broadway musical, and it mentioned Carrie. So yeah, pretty cool. Awesome thing there with Carrie. Obviously, we just talked about it a second ago. One of the things that really put King on the map. I mean, Carrie sold well. It put him on the map in the publishing world. But I think the world at large, probably Carrie, the De Palma film, is the big thing that drew a lot of people into being like, who's this Stephen King guy?
Yeah, it was. I just googled it. Yeah, it's the skating rink is the Carrie reference because they.
Oh yeah, they throw the
they
shake
throw
on her.
milkshake on her, which is supposed to represent the pig's blood.
Yeah.
And then she goes postal,
Yeah.
which is supposed to represent her killing the entire prom.
That's right, yeah. Because I remember there was something. Because I remember a bunch of people pointing it out. Then I remember King tweeting about it. Then I remember there was somebody even responded that was from the creative side. That's like, oh, so glad everyone caught
Yeah.
it and stuff. So yeah, definitely an impactful and inspiring thing in the horror realm. And that came early on too. I mean, you're talking that's before Halloween and stuff, so that's pretty early in the horror pantheon of like the modern horror. That's kind of the early stages of it there. So pretty awesome.
It was probably pretty brutal to see a girl covered in blood butchering people in theaters back in 1976.
Yeah.
Like,
And one of my favorite things too is De Palma is like close friends with George Lucas, and I've seen some quotes of George talking about either Carrie or Brian De Palma. And there was one time when somebody asked, like, "Oh, I heard De Palma didn't like Star Wars when it first came out, or when you first showed him a screening before it even came out." He's like, "Yeah, I didn't put much stock into his opinion though, because if there's not 10 gallons of blood, he's not interested." So,
Carol says
love it.
that Wednesday's little reference to it has red dye in the sprinkler system.
I do need to watch that. I've heard it's really good.
My wife and daughter are watching it together. It's kind of like a mom-daughter thing, so I
Yeah.
haven't watched it. But my wife is obsessed with it. She's like, I keep wanting to watch it, and she won't watch it. She's not in the mood. It's really sucky. And I'm like, oh, it sucks.
Oh man, yeah. Growing up, we had the Addams Family and Addams Family Values movies in the '90s or so, not early '90s probably, but in the '90s somewhere. And dude, I loved those as a kid, and yeah, I had the biggest crush on Wednesday as a small lad.
You would.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's just the best. Yeah, so that is the film registry. So now we're getting over to some Flanagan stuff a little bit.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not going to go overboard because we did our Dreamcasting.
Sure.
There's a number of articles out there with Dreamcasting. I'm not going to cover everything, but there is some that I wanted to look at. So this first one here, and this one is by Andrew Sanford from Pajiba on December 9th, 2023. And the title of the article is Let's Dreamcast Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower adaptation, or let the Dreamcasting of Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower adaptations commence.
Yeah.
And of course, we've already done our version, but
Done.
Yeah, it's already done from our side. But I do find it interesting. I mean, we had some listener people, whether they were in the chat live or email. We had other people's take on it. I love hearing other people's takes. I nerd out on this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try not to go overboard because I know just because I like it doesn't mean everyone likes it. But
it is always interesting to see other people's takes because you're like, oh, that is a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Or,
In
you're
fact,
like,
I was trying to look for it somewhere. Someone responded to. I think it was actually. You know what? I just thought of it now. I was looking through our emails, looking through Twitter. I couldn't find it. But you know what it was? It was in the comments of the last video.
Oh, on YouTube.
So I can't credit the person, but they said their choice for Eddie was, I don't remember the actor's name, but it's Steve from Stranger Things. And dude, the second I saw that, I was like, oh my God, dude, that is a great pick.
Okay.
That is a great pick. And I was wondering what your response to that would be. But I just barely, as this moment, remembered it was
in the year-end bash.
Yeah, it was one of the comments on there, and I forgot because I even before you got over, I was like looking. I'm like, God, I know somebody sent it to me.
Lewis Yank on YouTube.
Okay.
Sorry, it said edited, so that's what I said.
Yeah.
Also, Joe Carrie from Stranger Things for Eddie is what he says.
Yeah.
He's 30, but successfully plays a 20-year-old. I think he can fit the humor and emotion Eddie would need.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
his name's Lewis.
I could see that too. I could totally see that. So yeah, credit to Lewis there. Thank you. I'm glad I've remembered finally where it was.
Yeah.
I was like this morning. I was like scrolling through Twitter and stuff. I was looking at emails. I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? But I remember the comments on YouTube. But yeah, that's always good too. Send comments on YouTube. You could do that if you're not joining us live.
I've never looked at our comments before. I've never looked and seen our previous videos. I should keep an eye on that.
Yeah. So Andrew starts off here. It says Mike Flanagan and his producing partner Trevor Macy will be adapting Stephen King's The Dark Tower books through their company Intrepid Pictures. If you're like me...
Okay, hold on. Read that again.
Why?
Read it again.
Well, there's no confirmation.
See, but he says they are.
Well, they are.
They are.
They're writing scripts and stuff. That means they're
it makes it sound like it's already happening.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. I think there's a lot of people that are using terms incorrectly, because there's a bunch of people that are like trying to say that like, oh, like I got in a debate with someone on Reddit because they were trying to tell me that like it wasn't in development, and I'm like, it is in development. If they're writing scripts, it's in development. In development can happen before a studio signs off and buys off on it. You're developing it. Once a studio buys off, you're now in pre-production. And so like, but they in their minds, it's not even in development. But I mean, no, it's in development right now. It is being written actively by Flanagan and his partner. Like that means it's in development. Like development doesn't mean it's going to get all the way through fruition. But
this might be a little bit silly, but what I want is like the pizza tracker that they have on their websites where it's in development and it's finished and now it's in pre-production and then it's on its way and it's been delivered is when it gets uploaded and I can watch it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Can I get a little tracker like that made, Tad?
I mean, Amazon has those trackers too. Shows you where your package is.
Oh yeah,
at
exactly.
And stuff.
Yeah, where my package is,
Yeah. He says, if you're like me, allow yourself a moment to squeal with excitement like I did. And I think we both did that as well. I mean, you have
me on camera reacting to it.
You were on camera for it. Yeah, indeed. Which is the emergency episode for Peter. He says Flanagan has proven himself more than adept at adapting King's works, with Gerald's Game and Dr. Sleep being two of the best King adaptations out there. And he says, in in this writer's opinion, and I think I might have to agree. Those are some strong entries, man.
Ones, yeah.
And he says also the director's cut of Dr. Sleep or nothing. It's director's cut of Dr. Sleep or nothing, which I think I might agree. I don't think I'll ever watch the theatrical again on that.
I need to watch the director's cut.
Yeah, you should.
I still haven't.
It's like Lord of the Rings. Once you watch the director's cut, you'll never go back.
So much better.
You'll never go back.
Yeah.
Let's see. But yeah, he goes on here and says, while we wait for more information on the project, what is there to do aside from speculating wildly about casting? I'm going to lay out who I would like to see in Flanagan's series and movies, because that's what we got to remember. It's not just a series. We would allegedly have movies along with that as well. So his first choice here is Roland, and he has Rahul Kali, which is one that I think we both miss him. I really wanted him in mind, but I just and honestly, you know what? The more I've thought about it, the more I think that mine is probably unrealistic. I don't know if Michael Shannon's going to sign up for a long-term show with being one of the more talented actors. I think he could probably have movie deals. So honestly, if I had to go, I'd probably go Rule as well.
I would absolutely sign up for this.
Yeah.
He is phenomenal.
Because I think with my dream casting, I thought about it as I was prepping this episode. I was like, my dream casting, it was dream casting. Some of those things probably aren't realistic, just given all things. Whereas him, this gentleman would be very, very realistic.
He's already worked with Flanagan.
Yeah. Also, he had a Twitter thing. I haven't covered it, but he had tweeted well before it happened, after the Henry Cavill thing happened with Superman.
Yeah.
He's like, someone just needs to like hire him and do like a Warhammer 40K adaptation with Henry Cavill. And then weeks later that actually happened. And then he actually kind of did a victory lap, and he's like, oh, look what I said would happen. You know what I also can't wait for is Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower series. So
Which
I'll take it if he's predicted if he's predicting shit to such success. But yeah, he let's see. Andrew gives his explanation here. He says, "Let's get the big guy out of the way. Roland Deschain, the last of the gunslingers, is the lead of Stephen King's epic fantasy. While there are plenty of characters who make their presence felt throughout the 7 books, it is Roland's story. He's a hardened man with a troubled past and an unshakable need to reach the top of the mythic Dark Tower. Ruel Colley would be a perfect choice. He's an incredibly talented actor who has demonstrated great range over his career. He is no stranger to a grueling television schedule. He's also no stranger to Mike Flanagan. Casting Colley will just makes sense." He says, while Roland is grim and grit personified, there's a softness to him that is eventually, let's say, dusted off through his relationship with his Ka-Tet. Idris Elba is a great choice for Roland in the one Dark Tower adaptation we have, though the less said about that movie, the better. And I think that's true, because I think Idris would have been able to pull off that gruff exterior that eventually got more like soft and human and maybe emotional.
Bart says in the chat, seems a bit young for Roland, methinks. Agamorphy says, wow, Raoul? That's a choice. And then Mike responds to Bart and says they can gray up his hair and give him some wrinkles. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen actors who have looked way older than they actually are.
I mean, Father Marin in The Exorcist in 1973 was in his like 40s, and he's the old priest.
He looked like he was 70.
Dude, I think I only learned that like the last 5 years. Where like I was, because I think
you text me when you learned that,
because it's when they cast him Max von Sydow in Star Wars and in Game of Thrones. I'm like, yeah, he can be alive still.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up. I'm like, dude, he was like 70 or 80 when they did The Exorcist in 73. He should be dead decades ago. Yeah. And I looked it up and looked at his age, and I was like, did the math. I'm like, he was in his 40s when he played Father Marin? Like, good God.
Ryan says in the chat, Roland is like 35 in Gunslinger. I've never pictured Roland's age.
No.
Until we hit Wolves of the Kala, when he starts having arthritis.
Yeah.
Because that's an old person thing, right? That's when I start being like, oh, that's when he's old.
But then once we learn the origins of said thing, it doesn't really even he doesn't need to be old for that to be a thing. And obviously we know that, like, Gilead has fallen centuries before even, so it's like we don't even know.
Also, like at the end of book 1, after the Golgotha with the Man in Black, the time passes and everything like that. We don't know how much time goes there and everything. We also don't know what kind of spell he's under and everything. So it's just like, it's interesting to look at. Like Bart here is not wrong. I've pictured Roland old at certain points in the series.
Yeah.
But I've also pictured Roland very young in certain parts of the series. So it's kind of interesting how his age is kind of fluid throughout.
To me, I think like I don't want like a 19, 20-year-old playing him.
That's too close to Mages.
Like Steve from Stranger Things.
That's too close. That's too close to Mages.
He couldn't be Roland, but I think once you get an actor that's over 30, I think to me like Roland his age is very nebulous. There's never a time that King distinctly says his 50-something looking eyes, weathered with, crow's feet and whatever. Like, you just never get that. I think his age is very, because again, we know obviously because of like the timeline of things, like he's technically hundreds of years old, but he doesn't look like Yoda. So like, in terms of like aged, wrinkled Force
There's
Goblin.
There's something going on here.
So he's not going to age as we would see people age. Like, you don't like in real life, you see a 100-year-old person, they look ancient. Roland's well over that. He never is he seen as looking like, centuries old. So I think that gives any casting person the ability. And I will say, like I said, I've had my second thoughts on this, but my second thoughts aren't even out of nowhere. Honest to God, dude, I had this name typed into Roland.
Did you really?
When I was building mine, I did.
But then you thought of Shannon.
Michael Shannon is just such a fucking brilliant actor that I was just like, and I could just see him playing Roland too. But yeah, so I don't fault anyone. I think people that say someone in their 30s is too young versus someone, and they want somebody more in their maybe 40s, 50s, or even 60s. Like I even saw one article which I didn't cover, that had the guy we just watched Gerald's game last night.
Yep.
Gerald Greenwood something.
Bruce Greenwood.
Somebody had him cast as Roland. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like his 60s. Like, but again, so I don't fault anyone with where they find Roland as long as he's not like way too young. Like in his if he's like in his early 20s, that's way too young. But beyond that, I could see where all people fall on it. I could see where some people are like, yeah, 30, 35 is fine. Other people are like, no, I want a guy in his 50s. I could see it all because I think King left that ambiguity. There's really no whatever.
I just looked it up because I don't know how old Raul is. He is the exact same age as me and you. He was born in between me and you in 1985.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Tad's born in September of 85. I'm born in late November of 85.
Well,
he is beginning of November 85.
Here's the other thing I would ask, and not to shit on anyone's opinion, because again, I respect everyone's opinion on how they view it, because we all have a different picture of Roland in our mind. But how old was Clint Eastwood in the Spaghetti trilogy?
30s, right?
Because that's ultimately the image that Roland was based off of, right? And in some people's mind, in my mind early on, most of the books I pictured the Sergio Leone Man with No Name trilogy. But it just makes me wonder, how old was Clint Eastwood when he filmed those? Because again, not using that as a I told you so, but I would just say that could bring in some argument, because I don't think Clint was that old in those movies.
He was 30. A Fistful of Dollars came out in 1964, so he would have been 34 that year.
Okay.
So he was in his early 30s when he filmed A Fistful of Dollars. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was 1966, and then My Name Is... For a Few Dollars More was 1965. So 64, 65, 66. So it would have been 34, 35, and 36.
So you know what it comes down to? It's like all those memes you see where it's like, what the hell was in the water in the old days and how people age differently? Because maybe Clint looked older in his 30s than people do now.
This
and I would say that's probably a fact.
That right there on the screen, that's a 36-year-old man.
Yeah.
That's not what a 36-year-old man looked like in 1975.
No. They were
You're not wrong about that.
They were.
I see what you're saying about that, because I picture someone in their 30s when I'm watching a 1970s movie. I mean, we just talked about The Exorcist and everything like that.
Yeah.
The priest opposite him, the younger priest, I forgot his name.
Karras.
Damien.
Yeah, Damien Karras.
He was young, but I thought he looked like he was 40.
He looked like he was 40.
Yeah. So
young compared to Marin, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that right there on the screen is a 36-year-old, 35, 36 years old when this came out.
Yeah.
That's not what I would have put him at. That's not what I would have put him at.
No, he does look younger than that.
So I'm interested to see if they do cast him, That's something that Flanagan's going to have to decide. How old do you want Roland to be? How old do you want? Because like we have already talked about. Mike said it in the chat. Give him some gray hair. Give him some makeup. Make him a little bit more wrinkly and stuff like that.
Weathered by the desert.
Weathered by the desert and everything. He's already got a tan, so
yeah,
he's got a built-in one.
Anything else I missed? Roland is like 35 gunslinger. Roland probably has leathery skin from the living the hard life outside.
See, this is why you don't do emojis, Agamorphy. He's putting out the wrong ones. He sent a kiss to Mike when he was supposed to be the smiley one. See, this is why you just avoid emojis altogether. It's just not okay.
Emojis are awesome, sir. You know it to be true. Ryan says, I'm 37 and I have the dry twist, and he has a sad emoji there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. But again, because Roland is connected to King, I don't think that we even necessarily have to look at that and say he has to be old. But again, I don't fault anyone if anyone wants to cast someone older. Like I said, Bruce Greenwood definitely struck me as I was like, what the fuck? You really? As Roland? But then I'm like, I guess if you're more into, because I think he's probably late 60s or so. He comes off like being in his mid to late 60s to me.
I got no problem with it. Jensen Ackles that I cast as Roland is in his mid to late 40s.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that's definitely always a debate. And then he goes on here and says, before we start the old arguments in the comments, I'm very much aware that Roland is modeled after Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. Frankly, I don't think that that's relevant anymore, nor do I think casting against type hurts the story at all. If not getting to hear Detta Walker call Roland a honky muffa ruins it for you, then that's between you and Matrin. So, Yeah, anything else I'm missing in the chat here? It feels like I'm not keeping up here. The emoji mix-up, I think the early to mid-30s is perfect. Room to age during filming is what Carol says. And then Carol says, oh, look, I added a profile picture, and it worked. That actually, as I'll say, that did throw me off, because that's when I was...
usually it's just an orange C for Carol, so...
You know what always confuses me, though, is Chris from Australia has the exact same orange C, so when they're both in here, there's times I'm just like, wait.
Well, now we don't have to worry about that because Carol got a picture uploaded. Thanks for coming, Ryan. He has to take off.
All right, see you, Ryan. Yeah, so that is his Roland write-up, and again, I will say I was very, very close to having the same pick, and I'm actually heartbroken that mine didn't have him anywhere, because I think that he would also be a high choice for me for Flag, potentially.
Ooh. Flag?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because I thought about putting him in both roles, and it just didn't work out.
Just have him play both characters.
No. But like when he didn't work out for Roland, I put him down at Flag. But then, like, honestly, the more I thought about it, I just was like, dude, Alexander just needs a better shot at playing Flag. He needs a better material, kind of like Henry Cavill. Like I would have loved to have seen them being able to give him a true to character Superman movie to let us see what he looks like with the actual character being executed properly. And I'm a Superman fan, so I am being somewhat critical of Man of Steel. And it's the same thing with Alexander. I'm like, I would love to see because I think his Flag was a good job in The Stand, but I think there was not very many other good things in that movie or that show.
Yeah.
So let's move on here and to Odetta. He has next Odetta Holmes, Dana Walker, and Susanna Dean. And he, like me, actually has Keke Palmer. And he says, why not go for broke? If you want the best, you cast the best. Keke Palmer is not just a star, she is a force. And he says that's exactly what the character of Odetta Holmes deserves. It's hard to get into details about... also, I will say I skipped a part where he did say he was going to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible.
Oh, okay.
And he says, I had a hard time getting into details about Odetta, Susanna, Detta, without spoiling too much. But what I can say is that this character has multiple personalities due to a traumatic injury. And those personalities do not get along. Palmer would be an inspired choice for the role. Her talents cannot be denied, and Holmes would be an incredible showcase for them. She would basically be playing three characters, or four, depending on how you view the casting of Mia. In the right hands, Odetta could be an iconic role. Palmer and Flanagan's hands look right to me.
Yeah.
So, and again, I only cast her off of the one thing, Nope.
Nope, yeah.
But I would love to see her in more, because with what he's saying there, that not only is she a star, but she's a force. It makes me intrigued to see what else she's been in and stuff. But yeah, she's definitely magnetic, man. She blew me away in Nope. I loved that movie across the board, but she was incredible. Now the next one here, Eddie Dean is who he's got next.
Okay.
And Eddie Dean, he's got Jeremy Allen White. And I don't know who this guy is necessarily, but I will say the second I saw him, I was like, honestly, that's not far off of how I picture Eddie. Kind of rough New York style guy. And he says Eddie Dean is a heroin addict who was brought along on Roland's journey. He's funny, immature, and has a journey of self-discovery that is one of the easiest to relate to, in my opinion, he says. Eddie lost his way, and Roland and his Ka-Tet help him find it. He goes from junkie to hunky. So...
Okay.
And he says, I was stuck on Eddie's casting. Several of these popped into my head and wouldn't shake themselves loose. The same thing happened when our own Stephen Wilson brought up the undeniable choice, Jeremy Allen White, who recently starred in Hulu's The Bear, turning in a remarkable performance.
Okay.
So, I
one I'm not familiar with, yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm not familiar with his talent level, but I will say, dude, when I saw it, I was like, dude, that's actually as close to like what I had in my head as you could probably get actor-wise.
We're getting a lot in the chat about him. He's from Shameless. The Bear was amazing. Great choice. Someone says Lip. I'm guessing that's a character's name.
Yeah.
Keke was a good choice. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard The Bear is really good. It's on kind of on one of my lists of like shows I need to watch at some point.
Is it a movie?
I think it's a miniseries.
It's a miniseries?
It's as far as I'm aware. I just see a lot of hype for it on social media.
It's about him taking over his brother's restaurant. Is that the one set in Chicago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen the trailer for that.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued to watch that at some point. But yeah, it's an interesting choice.
Agamorphy says The Bear from The Bear, Hulu, best show of the year.
Interesting.
So
that's what I've been hearing. I've been hearing stuff like that where I'm like, I need to watch this because it's getting a lot of hype.
Yeah, and if he plays someone who's from Chicago, New York, I mean, they're basically the same thing, right?
Oh,
if someone from Chicago or New York hears that, I'm going to get punched in the throat for that
you're
one.
going to offend someone with that. Next up, he has Jake Chambers, and he has Alan S. Kim. And he says, Jake Chambers is the heart of the Ka-Tet, which I think that's a very true statement.
Yeah.
And he says, the young boy is one of the first to join Roland. I won't get into details about their meeting, but it helps drive the series. We also see Jake over the series lose his innocence while being exposed to death, destruction, and mystical mayhem. You need a skilled child actor, and Alan S. Kim fits that bill. The young thespian made an absolute splash in Miniary, and he's set to appear in John Krasinski's new film, If, which that's just the title's If, which I actually don't know if I've even heard of that. I mean, I didn't know Krasinski is working on something else, but color me interested because Krasinski, up to this point, has done no wrong.
Quiet Place was phenomenal.
Exactly. It says not only is Kim a gifted actor, but he's also has charm for days. Jake grows into his role at Roland's side, and choosing an actor Kim's age, he's only 10, would allow us to see that happen in real time. Jake should steal the heart of the audience just as he does Roland. So
I like it.
Yeah, indeed.
Agamorphy says that talking about the previous actor, he won the Golden Globe Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
It's 8 episodes. And this one,
Peter is terrible
because I compared Chicago to New York.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and then Mike probably saying born April 2012 is probably who we're talking about here, Alan S. Kim. Yeah, it definitely has like that. I don't know.
Innocence.
Yeah, exactly. I again, I haven't experienced this actor in anything that I've seen. Let's see. It looks like Miniari is the name of the thing that he put up that he's been in. That's a film from 2020. Okay, yeah, I hadn't seen that. Yeah. Next up, Walter O'Dim.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
He has Jeremy Davies.
Oh, okay.
Was he the dad in Black Phone? Okay.
Yeah. He's in a lot.
So he says Walter O'Dim, Martin Broadcloak, Randall Flagg, The Walking Dude, The Man in Black, King's most notorious reoccurring villain. I don't know about villain, but has many names and many forms. In the Dark Tower series, he is not the suave, handsome man that we know from The Stand. Dim, for lack of a better word, is skeevy. He's a Weasley little magician who plots and prods and skulks through the books. I don't like his the way he's explaining him here. Also look out for
with the truth.
Also looking out for himself over others. He should give the audience a feeling of unease whenever he's on screen. And I will say, with this picture right here, I feel uneasy.
He it's funny. I'm looking back through his filmography here, and it's not pleasant for some of the things that he's in. The Black Phone, he plays the dad in that, who's not good, not a very good person.
No,
he is in
not
American
the worst
Gods,
in that movie though.
Twin Peaks, Sleepy Hollow, Lucifer, Justified, Constantine, Hannibal. He was in 2 episodes of Hannibal, so he's been around.
Mike says
and he also played
Saving
Charles.
Private Ryan.
Huh?
Mike says Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, I haven't gotten back that far. But he also played Charles Manson in a little-known TV thing called Helter Skelter. So, yeah. All right.
It says Jeremy Davies is an Emmy Award-winning actor with decades of experience under his belt, including his turns as Charles Manson. And he says, which is relevant. Again, I don't like this slander here. Recently, he appeared in Scott Derrickson's adaptation of The Black Phone, delivering a haunting performance. He has chops, and he's more of a journeyman actor as opposed to a big name, which I believe would help enrich the role. Walter O'Dim is not the most sympathetic villain, which I disagree. But he can't be. But he can't be a one-note character, which is true. Yeah.
I mean, he's not this guy.
He says he deserves the depth that a talented, seasoned actor can bring. Jeremy Davies is that actor. So
I like everything that he said about Flagg there.
A lot of slander, indeed.
No, a lot of truth.
A lot of slander for sure. Now this next one, maybe one of the biggest reasons I wanted to. I mean, honestly, I enjoy a lot of this, but this next one,
okay,
Oi. Unlike us, we skipped Oi. He casts Oi.
Andy Serkis.
Mark Hamill.
All right.
He says, there are many strange creatures in the world of the Dark Tower, but none are as cute as a Billy Bumbler. Billy Bumblers look like a dog-sized raccoon crossed with a woodchuck. They can mimic human speech, albeit in a limited manner. They're adorable, and Oi is the greatest of them all. We may not see him for a bit, but when we do, Hamill stepping into the lead vocals would be a real treat. I'd love for him to have a bigger part in the show, especially since he's recently joined Flanagan's work family recently, which actually hasn't even released yet. But Fall of the House of Usher, Mark Hamill's in it.
That's right.
So will be the last Netflix Flanagan-verse
Right.
thing. And it says, but I assume he wouldn't want to take on a bigger role at his age, but I would love to be wrong on that. So now, dude, vocally, Mark Hamill as Oi, he could do it.
If he did it, you'd get a button for that.
Yes, there would be many buttons for Oi.
For Mark Hamill Oi.
Yeah, all the different inflections he would do. I mean, in this day and age,
Oi?
with Vin Diesel being hired for one line in the Marvel movies,
Hey, 2 lines.
Yeah, it's one line. And then he says, "That's it. That's my list so far." While I didn't get into why I think Wyatt Russell would be a perfect TikTok man, and he says he would be, I am satisfied with what I have laid out before you. That being said, if you'd like to read a little further, there is more. A big swing and a couple of spoilers. If you wish to avoid those, carry on. I will not judge. If you would continue this journey with me, I would only say thank you, size. So he has a couple. He says big swings and then some spoilers. So the first one is Danny McBride as Blaine the Mono.
Okay.
He's been in like a lot of those I don't even know if he was in The Hangover, but Hangover-like movies, like all those comedies and stuff. All I'm going to say as a pause is any man that writes Halloween movies like he writes them, I'll give him any role, to be honest. Because his trilogy of Halloween movies, which is the weirdest thing that like this comedic actor turned screenwriter to write such a great trilogy of Halloween movies. But he says, I said dreamcasting, didn't I? Blaine is a pain. Oh, it's the truth. He's a talking insane monorail on a suicide mission, and he wants to take the Ka-Tet with him. He's petulant, loves rhymes, and does bad impressions. And he says, at least that's how I read them. I also read them very firmly in Danny McBride's voice. I've never shaken it from my head. I get if it doesn't resonate with everyone, but hot damn just makes sense to me. I think that's the way it is with me with Tim Curry.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard Blaine in my head except for Tim Curry's like voice through like a synthesized thing, so it sounds somewhat mechanical, but
like
just
it's coming over the intercom.
Yeah, like that's just that, and that. So the way he's got Danny there, that's the way I've always had Tim Curry. So next one is an interesting one, Father Callahan.
Okay.
And he has Henry Thomas.
Yep.
As Father Callahan. He says Father Callahan travels from and this is why this one and the next one are spoilers, because obviously if someone hadn't read the series, wait, Father Callahan.
Father Callahan's in the Dark Tower? What?
Father Callahan travels from Jerusalem's lot to Midworld. If you've come this far, you likely know how. The man is on a journey of redemption, given his failures in Salem's Lot. The older, battered preacher becomes a pivotal part in Roland's Ka-Tet, just as Henry Thomas has become a part of Flanagan's. Thomas may not seem old enough yet, but we likely have a few years before Callahan makes an appearance. When he does, I think Thomas would bring the proper weight to him. And again, I would say, if you can make a 40-year-old Max von Sydow look like a fucking 78-year-old priest, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Aging people up has never been a problem. Aging people down, on the other hand,
that's fairly new technology.
That's new, and that's still kind of feeling a little bit sketchy to me. But yeah, making people older, yeah, we've been doing that for 50 years, for God's sake. Yeah, exactly. This year, 50 years. 2023, it's the 50-year anniversary of The Exorcist this year.
Is it really? And they got the sequel coming out later this year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So, although I think The Exorcist came out around Christmas, of course, making it a Christmas movie.
Stop it.
Let's see. This next one is probably one of the most like interesting choices, and it's Stephen King.
Okay.
We've obviously talked Joe Hill, but he has an interesting thought. Bill Hader.
Okay.
He says, yes, King himself appears in the Dark Tower series a couple of times. He says Hader has mentioned in the past that he has a King impersonation in his arsenal. Because I will say there is probably not a better impressionist that I know of than this guy. Have you ever seen his like late night shows and stuff where he'll do like he's
on Saturday Night Live, wasn't he?
He's incredible. I don't know. I usually see like Conan clips and stuff where he'll do like Arnold and like all these different people that he'll impersonate. Mm-hmm. And he says, and the fact that apparently he's said that he has a Stephen King impression in his bag of tricks. He says, I also think it would behoove the material to have a well-known person play the well-known man. The author's appearance may already be a lot for audiences to wrap their head around. Having a popular funny man like Hader on board will soften the blow. Plus, he's already got a King adaptation experience under his belt.
Sure does.
Which is definitely true.
And it really caught me off guard how well he did in It.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Again,
I feel like he was the best part of the second movie. Like, there's a lot of good things. I'm not saying it's bad, but I think he was the MVP.
Of the ones playing the Losers Club. Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you want to say like Pennywise or whatever, but yeah, of like the new cast that came in the second movie, he's the MVP to me. I guess I shouldn't say the best thing because that implies negativity. I'll say he's the MVP of the movie for me. I don't know about you, but I thought he was.
I loved him in the It Chapter 2. I thought he was really great as Richie.
Yeah, for sure.
Nailed it. Agamorphy says, I have been going back and forth over what Henry Thomas will be assigned. He could be any of them. And then skipping Joe Hill may make sense. He may not want to reenact a tragic event that actually happened to his father. That's a good point.
And he probably, I don't know how old he would have been, but he probably wasn't. I mean, I don't think he was a kid, but I don't think he was
in the
like
90s, so.
Yeah, 99, so I don't know how old Joe Hill. But yeah, no, that's true. And honestly, do we honestly give Joe Hill credit that he can even act? Just looking like the man doesn't mean that he's going to be able to act. I mean, the worst thing to do would have a guy that just can't act very well. But Agamorphy is correct. I think Henry Thomas, legitimately, I think honestly, when I was thinking about him when we were doing our casting, I think I even thought about him as Brown.
Just right there, right
and
at the
Zoltan, yeah, just because I think he could be something from that small up to a larger part like Flag. I think he really could.
Imagine him playing Steven where he's just constantly in Roland's ear for the first little bit of the series.
Yes, I think we mentioned that potentially him being Steven as well. I mean, I feel like he could slip into a number of fucking roles, and I don't know. I think he really could fit anywhere. I do have a wonder if Flanagan would want to hold him too far, though. Like, we don't see him till like season 5 or something.
You see him in like the Kala.
The Kala, exactly. I just don't know if that's realistic because it seems like Flanagan is a Henry Thomas junkie.
Yeah. Agamorphy says, sure, Hader will be good. I think what they should do for the Stephen King angle is just introduce a surrogate author, not a Stephen King.
I don't know, man. I think you got to go Stephen King.
You've been saying that the last little bit that you're like, yeah, it has to be in there.
Yeah.
I don't think it does.
I think it does. It's just such a big part of the stories, and it's one of the most unique elements of the story. Just like I've said, like I don't want to see like the ending resolve. The ending needs to be what we read on the screen because that is one of that. It's like that'd be like, do we really want to have the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones? Like, maybe we could just skip that. You know, like no. To me, King and the ending, the loop back, those are the Red Wedding of the game of this series. To me, everyone could view it differently, obviously, but I just think those batshit things, and it ultimately this series is all about being kind of meta.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the only other thing that I would accept is do Flanagan and make it like the filmmaker instead of the author, because that would be the exchange, right? Like instead of an author, it's like, you know, Flanagan's losing interest in the Dark Tower series and he doesn't want to finish the
I want to go make Midnight Mass 2 or something like that.
And then Roland and them have to like go and stop that from happening.
You will make the Dark Tower series again.
Not that he would actually lose interest, but for the sake of the story, of course, he might lose interest. Let's see. Stephen King. Oh man. Let's see. Next up we have a fun little article. Stephen King's best villains and monsters ranked.
Yeah.
And it's a great picture that goes along with this article
boy.
too. I don't know who I'd be more scared of if I were here. I mean, you got Stephen King himself, which is an absolute monster. We can ask Jake Chambers about that. We've got that beast on the side there, St. Bernard. We've got Annie Wilkes.
Where's the St. Bernard?
On the right. Far right, next to Stephen King.
Oh, your camera's blocking it.
Oh. Looks change that over there.
There's the good boy.
It's probably better to block the St. Bernard anyway, right? You got
you got the tentacle things from the mist there on the left.
Yeah.
Spider.
I don't know. Spider, is that a Mordred reference?
I know what the crow.
I mean, the crow. I don't know why you'd throw a hero in there, but
not a hero.
This is by Anna Perez from MovieWeb on December 28th, 2022.
Hey. Carrie's on there. Just saying.
She's not a villain.
I'm just saying.
She's not a villain.
She's on there.
She's not it's the only reason she's there and not Carrie's mom is because she's iconic. You know,
Get
that's the
out of
iconic
that.
image. They don't show her just like in the gym, you know, in her gym clothes, just all sad. No, it's her with the fucking blood because that's the most iconic fucking image.
Because she's the villain.
No,
Yeah.
not at all, sir.
I mean,
Anna starts off and says there can't be a discussion about horror and the horror genre without Stephen King's name coming up. Even when talking about movies and television, he's considered by many the king of horror and should remain so for a very long time. The author is a wordsmith that can summon fear in his readers since the beginning of his career. King has terrified multiple generations, and I would pause and interject here. I also believe he is the most responsible person for the fear of clowns. That keeps returning to his words and scary visuals. He has influenced many of the most successful voices in horror today, especially in film, and that is not something that many can state. Then she says, choosing only a handful of King villains is not an easy task, especially because he has written over 60 novels. Here is a list of some of the best of his evil creations that were well adapted for the big or small screen. So that's the caveat here. This isn't novel. This is screen. So, you know, and she ends up
I mean, you got Kathy Bates's Annie Wilkes.
but I'm just saying that, like, let's not get concerned that, like, maybe book things are not being mentioned here, because this is strictly talking screen wise. Even though King inspired them, it's like who did King inspire that they then turn on screen to just incredible villains and monsters. And then, just to bother me, Anna only has 9.
Oh.
So Mike says Carrie's not a villain. And there's actually, I don't remember if I grabbed it, but there was an article I even covered that even talked about, is Carrie considered a villain? And maybe it's even this one. We'll see. So number 9, though, starting off, is The Outsider from The Outsider.
Okay.
She says this is a newer character, as it is a monster in one of King's novels released in 2018. However, it has some of the best characteristics of his classic antagonists, being violent, mysterious, and most importantly, scary. The Outsider, also called El Cuco, is a shape-shifting monster that can transform itself into anything it lays its eyes on. The Outsider miniseries by HBO is one of the most faithful adaptations of the author's work. The terror and almost mythological characteristics of this creature that feed into people's pains and fears are the highlight of the miniseries. I could agree. I mean, I love the book, and then the series was just fucking a banger. So I agree. The Outsider's a worthy pick. What do you think?
Oh yeah. Terrifies me.
Yeah, just
Like the cave scene with Holly and Ralph going down into the cave.
does that get too beastie for you, going into caves and
Worms aren't exactly like, you know, something made of worms is not exactly like
like
but
Oogie Boogie?
like Oogie Boogie. not exactly scared of Oogie Boogie. But
Not me either. He's an endearing, lovable
a
character.
cave is
Caves,
yeah, especially one filled with where people died.
I would love to be able to record you the first time playing Red Dead when you had to go into that cave. When you go into that cave for that cat or something, isn't it?
Cat.
With the guy that brings you.
The guy who has a debt and he takes you to
Yeah.
hunt a white cougar.
Yeah,
in
that black cave.
Not a fan.
I would love to be watching you going into that cave. Like,
Not a fan.
just like reaction video, you know, just have you playing it for the first time. That would be incredible. If I could Men in Black you and wipe that out of your memory, then do it. That'd be a great video.
That would be one of the video games that if it was offered, there's that question, you know, what game would you replay for the first time?
Yeah.
Red Dead is on that list. For
pretty
me.
high up there. Yeah, for sure.
Bart says, great book, still not able to see the series. That's sad.
Yeah, that is a bummer.
HBO Max doesn't have it available in Europe.
That's nuts to
Gosh.
me. Yeah, that's nuts. Yes, I think Mike has a great point. VPN.
Yeah.
Find yourself in Cleveland, Ohio, watching.
Why
Outsider.
not Cleveland? Anywhere but Cleveland.
And then so number 8 going on here is Kurt Barlow from Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
Definitely a freaky picture there too.
Ugh.
Kurt Barlow is a powerful vampire that borrows from the Gothic tales, at least in the 1975 version. He had a Nosferatu-like appearance. Barlow is played by the same actor that did Pinhead in the BBC radio dramas, and is about to be revived, and this is incorrect, by William Sadler in the new adaptation of Salem's Lot coming out in the movie theaters next year. It is not William Sadler. We covered that in the last roundtable, not the year-end bash, but the last proper roundtable. It was announced who was playing him, and it's not William Sadler.
Yeah.
I don't know if we still have learned who William Sadler's playing, but either way, the depiction of this character is very different from the novel, but the old miniseries still conveys how purely evil and animal-like this creature is with its purpose of perpetuating its species no matter what. You still need to watch this.
I've never watched either one of the Salem's Lots, so.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
You need to watch this one for sure. I mean, the one in the early 2000s with Rob Lowe. I mean, what's the guy's name? The guy that played, I always think of him as Zephram Cochrane from Star Wars or Star Trek. And then he was in The President in Sum of All Fears. What the hell? He played Jack Bauer's dad too. I don't remember his name. He played the Callahan. Let's see.
Father Callahan?
James Cromwell.
Oh, okay.
James Cromwell. I think that's that one is like very divided though. That one doesn't have it's not as beloved as the original, but you need to watch that original for sure at some point. So you agree, Mr. Barlow deserves to be on here?
Might be a little bit too low, honestly. I mean, destroyed a town.
Yeah.
Like,
it's true.
Murdered children.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, some of the rankings.
You know, when you murder people, you're pretty much a villain.
I mean, is a vampire murder? Like,
yes, you kill them and they come back to life as a vampire.
But you don't see like a bear that eats a person. It's not murder there. So like, is a vampire in its nature?
We're talking about sentient creatures.
No, killing, yes, but
no, but the higher thinking. Okay, but that's what discerns us from animals. Okay, so when you throw out a dog or a bear or something like that as comparison to something that chooses to do it, not something that has its natural instinct.
They got to eat,
like
right?
That. You don't have to eat people, though.
What else? I mean, do they? I mean, how's
there are plenty of vampire stories where they don't eat people.
I don't know about that.
Plenty of vampire stories.
There's no point of vampires if they don't eat people.
Absolutely.
In storytelling.
I mean, sir, that's the entire premise of Twilight. So,
that's not vampires. That's like saying, I count the Count as a vampire more than Twilight.
He is a vampire.
That's more.
And again, he doesn't eat people, so.
Oh, he does.
You just don't see it.
It's like
all those guest stars are vampires. Everyone who's ever been a guest star in Sesame Street is a vampire. Oh, Ted, get your tinfoil hat off.
One of these episodes of Sesame Street, like, why are all these like bodies keep showing up in this alley?
One body.
Oh, we're corrupting people's minds and their childhood here now with this. Let's see, and then Agamorphy says James Cromwell was also the farmer from Babe, so that's maybe more your speed.
Pig.
Yeah, no, for me he plays that role in the new one, 2003 I think is what it was. So
newer of the two.
Yeah, newer of the two, and not the newest as of right now, because until the other one comes out, it is the newest version. So
it's true.
Yes,
if the new one comes out.
Yeah, no shit, it has to come out this year. It has to. Because I mean, they keep moving along, which run times, confirmed, the rating confirmed. The only thing we don't have is a trailer and a release date. That's it.
A poster, trailer, and a release date. That's all we're waiting for.
Yeah, exactly. Count Chocula mentioned.
No, Count Chocula.
Oh man. And again, I'm not even doing this trailer, but I'm just saying that, like, because I would say killing certainly, but I think murder is where it's like, does it count as murder? Like,
okay. Sir,
because again, it's a feeding thing.
It's not. You're mean to tell me that he has to eat the entire town?
Well, he doesn't personally. It's like the virus thing where he bites one and then they bite one and then it just spreads out.
Yeah.
So.
Also, pretty sure that his scene alone with Father Callahan and the boy proves that he's a villain. I can't be having this argument with you every time on whether or not they're villains.
You twisted it into that conversation. All I said is I don't know if it's murder.
It is murder.
That's all I said.
It is murder.
I'd say killing, because the other thing too is they're not really dead. They become vampires.
No. Vampires are dead. They die and they reanimate just like a zombie.
Yeah, but
that's dead.
They're still
and become something else because of something in their blood or whatever. They are dead. They have no pulse. They don't eat food. They don't drink water. They don't have to have water anymore. And they're allergic to sunlight. I mean, dude, like, they're dead.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Yes.
Next up, number 7, Warden Norton from The Shawshank Redemption.
Go ahead and tell me how he's not a villain.
Oh,
You're arguing with everyone is not a villain.
No, again, you twisted that as villain. All I said is I don't know if you consider
what
it
do you mean
murder.
Twisted as a villain. Vampire is a villain.
No, you're twisting to that argument. All I said is I don't know if it's murder with a vampire.
It's murder.
I think it's like a bear or a werewolf where it's like, yes, they killed a person, but I don't know if it's murder.
It's murder.
I don't know about that. I think there's a natural drive there for food. So
it's murder.
Yeah. There's some people that say that a steak is murder. So
I mean, could you try them for murder because they're not humans? I mean,
they just disappear, turn into a bat,
yeah,
and fly away.
You're under arrest.
Bye.
Not today.
Flutter away. Flag could do that too if he were ever to try. If any illegitimate court was ever to put him on trial, he could just turn into a crow and fly away.
Crimes against humanity. Things against the Geneva Convention that Flag does.
It says, while Captain Byron Hadley does Norton's dirty work, the prison warden is still the main antagonist of the Shawshank Redemption. He represents corruption, doing money laundering, amongst other things. The sadism that he has against the prisoners includes killing them for his benefit. This is another social criticism in the form of a character, something that King is very fond of and that could be found in his other works, such as Big Jim Remy and Under the Dome. Not so much as successful as television adaptation, though. So, yeah, indeed. He's pretty dastardly. I think when I rewatched that in the last year or so, I told you, I'm like, I think we
we forgot how bad he is.
And I'm not going to say for sure he's worse than Mrs. Carmody, but I would say that it isn't just a runaway Mrs. Carmody's the worst thing that Frank Darabont did on screen. I think the warden's got to give some competition because, dude, he's fucking bad, dude.
Yeah.
Even some of his threats too, right? Mm-hmm. Where at the one point when he's tells Andy if he's going to stop the money laundering shit, he's like, then I'll take you out of that one room Hilton and move you down to whatever block with all the sodomites and whatever. Yeah. So yeah, he's pretty fucking terrible.
Mike says the warden's just doing his job and make a little extra money on the side illegally. Stop it.
Oh man,
I will not stand for hints that villains are not villains. I won't stand for this malarkey.
So next up is number 6 is Margaret White from Carrie. It says there will always be a debate if Carrie. This is the one. There will always be debate if Carrie becomes a villain of her own story. But there is no discussion regarding how completely evil and horrible of a character her mother is, Margaret White. While fundamentally a prey turned into a predator, Carrie is still the personification of what would happen when you torture someone so deeply that they break. Margaret, on the other hand, represents abuse, religious fanaticism, and then in parentheses says also seen in other villains like Mother Carmody in The Mist. And let's be honest, how not to be a mother as another aspect of Mrs. Margaret here. Some of the scariest and most evil Stephen King characters are human. That's the truly scary part, and it's true, man. I think if we were to just draw a line down a piece of paper and write human and unhuman, and then list out a roster of all the King, villains, I wonder if we could actually show that the humans are worse than the inhuman ones. When it comes to the malice, the horrible fucking nature. Because yes, Pennywise kills more. But it's does it really come again? Because that comes into the whole nature question too. Versus this fucking lady.
Well, but also let's talk about the different people in it that are
the people that are evil too.
Heinous people. Bev's husband, Bev's dad,
Henry Bowers, his buddies that he runs with. What's the one that gets taken by the fridge? Hochstetter. Jesus Christ, that dude's a serial killer. Yeah,
he just hasn't killed more than. He's killed the one, and he hasn't killed more than one yet.
Yeah.
So they're right there. There's 4 or 5 humans that are
Annie Wilkes.
And
let's jump to the next one because it's a perfect segue here to number 5, Percy Wetmore from The Green Mile.
Right.
And the serial killer in The Green Mile.
Yeah.
The one that actually killed the kids, right?
Well, I mean, let's be perfectly honest. The guy who owns the mouse as well, the Frenchman. What's his name?
I don't remember.
Do you remember his crime?
No. Do they tell you in the movie?
Yes, they tell you.
I don't know if they do in the movie.
I don't know if they do in the movie, but I read The Green Mile this past year.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. He broke in, raped someone, and then tried to cover up his crime by killing them and dousing them in gasoline, burning down the entire apartment building, and killed 8 people.
Yeah.
That's still like that's bad.
Darabant's pretty consistent in removing those things because you hear Red's crimes in the novella of Shawshank too, because he like cuts the brake line to kill his wife or something, and it ends up killing a bunch of people because the accident that happens or whatever. But it's like Darabant's pretty because I think with what story he's trying to tell, he keeps those things out and just lets them be. But, we don't know their crimes.
Right.
It's ambiguous.
But if you put me in a room with one bullet in Percy, the Frenchman, and the serial killer, I'd probably shoot Percy. Dude's an asshole.
Yeah, and then Mike says I hated Percy as a kid and as an adult. Yeah, I mean he's pretty terrible.
And the bad. I don't know if you're saying the bad people of Derry, their agomorphy, but yeah, exactly. But even also like the indifferent people. Yeah, like there's the one where.
But is that really them, or is that like Pennywise's effects that cause them all to be like?
I have an opinion about that. I don't know if we want to get into it now.
That's how I was always interpreted it. That's how I've always interpreted it. Is there was like Pennywise, he's like a virus, and it just spreads and kind of it contaminates the whole town to a point.
Okay, we're going to get into this. This is a tangent for it that I was kind of saving a little bit. I think that there are certain people who live in Derry that are Percy type people. They're not good people. Even without Pennywise.
Which is any town, right?
Any town.
Any town has people like that.
But with Pennywise, that dials it up to 11.
Yeah.
You get the pharmacist. You get the people who walk away or just ignore the kids that are in trouble.
Yeah.
But there are good people in Derry. There's the old guy who tries to stop them from carving the H into Ben's stomach.
Yeah.
And Henry turns and goes after him. With the knife, like slashing at his or her. I can't remember if it's an old woman or an old man.
I think it's a lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she gets back in her car and drives away. And he like smashes a tail light and everything like that. I
think what I would say, does Pennywise then just amplify everything? Like, so if you do have a Percy person, they become worse. But then you got a person that's kind of normal and they become indifferent maybe, where it's like the people that see something happening and just move
fold
along.
Their newspaper, get up and go inside kind of thing. That's indifferent. But the people who are like actively like the ones that get me are when Bev's running from her father. Yeah. And there's like the delivery guy or the butcher or whatever it is, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna get it, girl." It's like,
yeah,
he's coming to murder her. Like you can tell that. Like like that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like normal people should intervene in that situation, and he's just like, "Oh, you're gonna get it, girl!" Like all happy about it.
One of these days, maybe we should look at human versus non in the King.
I think that would be a really good, interesting topic.
Yeah, but with Percy here, it says the Green Mile is more of a grounded story than most of King's body of work. I will say,
Carol.
I will say, there's only so much of grounding there, right? Because we do have magical powers and whatnot.
Carol's calling me out in the chat.
What for what?
Peter, I have a tangent. We're not getting to it now. Peter, 2 seconds later. Okay, we're getting to it now. I can't help it. I have a problem with tangents.
Yeah, indeed. We both do.
We do.
That's why we're doing like a podcast. Our podcast is the length that it is and not like those 30-minute podcasts. I don't even know how I don't get it.
This is our group therapy.
Yeah. And it says, therefore, it is a villain, or its villains are not all human. Nevertheless, it is a great movie, and it has some horrible characters, including a serial killer, William Warthog. However, the police officer Percy Wetmore takes the cake as one of the cruelest villains that King has ever written. With his mission to take away any joy the inmates can have before their death, he goes as far as sabotaging an execution to see a man suffer. He is the example of how true evil can live in our society today and does not need a supernatural force behind it. So, I guess to me, it's more of like the killer. I think of like what he did and just what kind of person he is. But Percy, there's like a nastiness to him that's even more than the killer, which is saying a lot.
He gets a little taste of power, and all of a sudden it becomes the worst.
Yeah.
It just becomes the worst. And that's the thing, is like, that's terrifying.
Yeah, indeed.
We've seen that throughout history, what happens when bad people get power.
Yeah, indeed. So now, number 4, and interestingly enough, we have Pennywise from It. And we got a Tim Curry appearance here.
It's a great picture.
It is, but like I used their pictures, and this is one of the first times we've had a Pennywise conversation that's used Tim Curry in a minute. It seems like we keep getting the newer version here. And he says the scary demon clown Pennywise is a character that is very hard to adapt to screen. While clowns have a history of being terrifying, which I don't know about that. Like I said, I think King is one of the root causes of clown fear. And he says to be able to transport, or she says to be able to transport an entity that has been alive since the beginning of everything is not easy. Both actors in each version of It that play the character are iconic in their own way, and both deserve to be remembered. It's one of the author's best creations, and because he is unique to every character he encounters, he uses their fear against them. It could even be said that Pennywise is a personification of fear itself, creating a timeless character that will forever haunt its viewers and readers. So, yeah, I don't think there's any debate there. He's more iconic than Ronald McDonald, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And then next up, number 3, going back to the human side, Annie Wilkes. What?
Speaking of villains, I just told my wife to pop in real fast to the show while we had Pennywise on. She's not happy with me.
Hashtag Peter is terrible.
Hashtag Peter is terrible. I deserve that one.
So that it's with Annie Wilkes. It says once asked who he would least like to spend quarantine with, King answered very wisely, Annie Wilkes from Misery.
Yeah.
Nurses should bring calm and peace to their patients, but that is the complete opposite of what Annie Wilkes does. And one of King's trademarks takes something that shouldn't be scary and traumatizes it for his audience by never being able to see that thing the same way again. Annie is brutal and completely insane in her underlying love for her favorite author, Paul Sheldon. But she does whatever it takes, including breaking his legs and drugging him so that she will not be able to leave her. Yeah, that's... We just watched it not too long ago.
We did
so
for one of our Patreon hangouts in December.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh in the old mind. The only thing fresher is Gerald's game now.
Yeah.
The
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
The eclipse. What? Or the Moon Man too. What are you worried about here?
Degloving.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there's always the degloving for sure. What do you? I don't see what you're.
That's my wife.
I don't see any of that.
Oh,
it's not showing on mine. You're saying LOL is the last thing I see on my screen.
yeah, the one above that.
Mike?
No.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you on live chat?
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell? My wife popped in and said, "You ash." Hashtag Peter is terrible.
Yeah. I'll refresh here. Oh, there we go. Dude,
Yeah.
I swear sometimes my chat is just a little bit... Every once in a while,
That's weird that it showed mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Mike, if you haven't watched Gerald's game, you need to watch it. Flanagan has
Flanagan does deglovings and everything,
he
but
has an obsession with deglovings.
but Gerald's game is probably the worst.
If you don't know what a degloving is, I would not recommend Googling it if you are faint of stomach.
I would.
Because Tad's terrible, so... Yeah.
And then we are talking about best villains and monsters. I don't know why he is on here, but number 2 is Randall Flagg. Definitely doesn't deserve to be on here.
He's a villain.
The Stand in the Dark Tower, which, of course, there's many more than that.
Obviously.
But she says...
Those are just the most notable for his villainy.
Yeah. She says this is considered to be the main villain of the author's entire universe, as most of his books have connections with each other. Randall Flagg became more and more well known, became more well known because of the Stand adaptations, in which he is the main antagonist. However, he is also part of the Dark Tower series. He is a character that tricks the audience and other characters, as he appears to be a normal man and not a powerful dark entity that thrives on chaos and destruction. Flagg tries to corrupt humans and make them kill each other. It is even up for debate if this character can even truly die. And I think there is no debate. He can't. I don't think there's any, because he always comes back.
He never comes back in the Dark Tower after
we
we
haven't seen anything beyond that far enough to know. So he very well could come back.
Well, I mean, resetting the cycle and everything.
I guess that does. Yeah,
that resets things.
So there's that. Yeah,
but he doesn't, rematerialize out of Mordred's stomach after all.
It might. You never know. We don't stay in that universe long enough. We get pulled through the door with Roland.
Mike seems a little hot under the collar, if you will. He says he's the best. Period.
I mean, it's true.
That's what you would say. Best villain?
No, he's the best character. He's wonderful.
No, stop it.
He's a lovable, endearing character.
Carol says, "Yeah, Mike. It makes it hard on Peter." Flagg is just misinterested. Stop it, Mike. That's the other Mike. Stop it.
And then number 1, we have
Stephen King.
The Overlook.
Oh,
from The Shining. And I will say, interestingly, they used the real Stanley Hotel. So that's an interesting choice, because like we always talk about the Pennywise. I don't even think we could debate this. It's almost always the Kubrick version that gets shown when alluded to.
What's that one called up in Oregon for the outside shots?
God damn it!
I always do that to you too.
Timberland Lodge.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go. Timberland Lodge.
Up in
That's the exterior only, though. When you
Yes.
go inside, it looks nothing like because
the
everything.
Stanley Hotel is the interior shots entirely.
No,
Right?
The interior to the Kubrick's film is all set. There is no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was all done in England. They built all the interior sets in England.
The Stanley was the location where he wrote this.
That's where that inspired the book. That was where King stayed. That's where 217 came from. And then that's why.
But it's 237 in.
That's why the Mick
Stanley?
Garris series does the Stanley.
Yeah.
And then Kubrick uses the Timberland Lodge for the exterior. They shot all the interiors on sets in England. Which is why it gets so weird when like they're taking turns and it doesn't really make sense if you like try to think of it logically. Mm-hmm. Like you've seen the whole thing about Ullman's office, right? If you actually watch when Jack's walking in, it's like inside of the building, but he's got a window behind him.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. There would be rooms behind him, not
because he's in the middle of the building.
Yeah, like if you, I've never got nerdy enough to track that shit, but like people have. And
people have.
Yeah, it's wild. But it says, while Jack Torrance is remembered as one of the most iconic characters created by the devilish mind of Stephen King, he is not technically the villain of The Shining. The obscure force in the walls and the long corridors of the most infamous hotel in modern fiction. The Overlook start to control Torrance's dark impulses. It's a hotel that traps Danny in its labyrinth and creates living nightmares for the family. So much so that after his death, Torrance becomes part of the hotel. In the book, King mentions how the soil itself was rotten and fecund with true evil, which is definitely true. Because what is it, Indian burial ground in the book is where it gets mentioned that there was like something like that. So that's the classic thing. I mean, that's almost cliche at this point, but probably wasn't back in the 70s when King was writing that.
That was of the norm then.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think it's true. If I were looking down this list, even I know they're just saying the best villains and monsters, but in terms of like the ones I'd least like to run into, I'd almost say like The Shining, the Overlook might be number one for me. Like I would not.
Then why are we going to stay there?
We're not. We're going to the Stanley. Totally different.
The Overlook.
Yeah, totally different. It's innocent, sir. I'm staying in 217, sir.
I'm not staying at that hotel. I'm staying down the road.
Oh.
So when you call me in the middle of the night, be like, Peter, come save me. I'm going to be like, no.
Hashtag Peter's terrible.
I'm not walking in and getting an axe to the back because that's what happens to the person who comes to save people.
Only in the Kubrick version.
Okay, I'm not coming in and getting a rook mallet to the back and the head and the ankle and the knee and the shin.
Oh, and then Mike says, I hoped the Overlook would have play a bigger part in Billy Summers instead of just a cameo. Yeah, and honestly, you know, long term, back in my first time reading The Dark Tower, I actually thought that we might cross over with
end up at the Overlook.
Somehow. I don't know why, but just as Roland's team kept crossing into our world, I just figured at one point or another they'd be moving through a door or a portal, and they'd end up at the fucking Overlook.
I don't know
hotel.
how we didn't have the Overlook in the tunnel underneath where it went to like 9/11, the Ford Theater where Lincoln was assassinated, Dallas 1963. Why didn't it have one for Overlook 1984 or something like that?
Yeah, or any time. Just a whole hallway.
The 1920s when the murders happened, the mobster murders.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple things. So it would be a whole hallway of like the Overlooks. The Overlook, 1919, 1923.
Turn right for the Overlook hallway, and it just has like 17 doors that you... No, 19 doors that you can go in.
There's plenty of things to look at there. All right, so next up, we got a fun little article, and I think it's a lot of recap, but it's a good button on it all. But it's Mike Flanagan and Stephen King are a match made in horror heaven.
Oh, yeah.
And this is by Brandon Moreno from Collider on December 28th, 2022. And he says, Mike Flanagan has quickly become one of the most recognizable names in horror as of late. From his first major film Oculus to the breakout horror series The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix in 2018 that earned him a number of additional series after its success, he's made quite the name for himself within the genre. In the last few years, Flanagan has also tackled projects tied to the acclaimed horror author Stephen King, including Gerald's Game and Dr. Sleep, resulting in some of King's best adaptations of the last few years. Flanagan is the perfect person to continue adapting Stephen King novels, as he does with so many. He has major respect for the source material, even when he has to make changes, that's definitely true. Because, I mean, the Dr. Sleep, I would still argue, I think that his changes, I think he ends up making a better story than King. I think I know King couldn't do that, but I think
Yeah.
having the Overlook there at the end, I think just makes it such a more powerful thing.
It's such a good ending.
Yeah, it really is.
That final confrontation and everything.
Yeah. And then he goes on and says, this makes his recent announcement that he has gained the rights to the Stephen King fantasy. And then he says in parentheses, and let's be honest, sci-fi, horror, western, epic. The Dark Tower, all the more exciting. Flanagan is a perfect person for the job. And then he starts off and says, Flanagan has proven his ability with series, and that's like his first header. And it says, while his previous two times adapting Stephen King were in film, The Dark Tower is planned to be a long-form series. If we know anything about Flanagan, it's that he knows how to conduct a horror series. The Haunting of Hill House, Midnight Mass, especially attest to that, as well as The Haunting of Bly Manor and Midnight Club. This selection of series shows that he knows how to handle the varying different degrees of storytelling, from Hill House, which plays like a 10-hour film, to Midnight Club, which is has more anthology elements to it. Which, you know what, this is kind of an interesting thought, because I don't think I've ever thought about it with the previous, with the movie that was going to be movies and series and stuff, is we never really thought about like how hard that is and how different those two genres are. Flanagan's proven in both. He's done film and television.
Yeah.
Whereas previously, you know, who was the team that was going to be behind like the eventual series as well as the other movies? Like
because a showrunner and a director of a movie are two very different jobs,
vastly different. So with Flanagan,
to have Flanagan being as adept as he is at both jobs, where he can step in and fill that role for both of them.
Yeah.
And being such a big King fan, and obviously being as talented as he is.
Yeah.
Like, we were watching Gerald's game yesterday for the Hangout, and just the cinematography alone.
Yeah.
We called it out, 2-3 times
and
each?
the editing.
Yeah.
The editing was the one that really got me.
Editing,
There was some edits in there that was like, he was doing it on purpose to make you uncomfortable, and it was working.
Yeah.
People were just like, it would cut just so randomly, and very unsettling.
Yeah.
And a Midnight Mass book in there. So then it goes on here. It says each series managed to have its own major, or have its own major strengths at their forefront. Strong, well thought out characters and hope, as well as heart, in the face of horrifying bleakness. Even if each of his stories has a major tragedy, they're incredibly moving films and series. Danny, which is played by Victoria Pedrani from the Haunting of Bly Manor, Danny Ewan McGregor from Dr. Sleep, and Riley Zach Gilford from Midnight Mass are all tear-jerking, tragic protagonists at the end of their respective character arcs. Yeah, I mean, he does very well with all those emotional things. We got a little bit of it with Gerald's game, but I think he only got more so as the series went on, or as his career went on. I mean, I think Gerald's game, in some ways, might be the least emotional.
That's like
of
the
his stuff.
launch point for him.
And
he had done some stuff before that was good, but that's the one that really like launched him into popularity.
Yeah.
So
and then it says Flanagan also showed that he can create a tight story that plays out as long as it needs to. When adapting novels, changes are necessary to put that story on screen. Not everything from the book will translate well visually, and it's up to the filmmaker to make the right changes for the story. But there's a fine line there. Making changes can be hard. There is a risk of making the wrong one and completely derailing the theme of the books. Yet with his last two King adaptations, he has done extremely well at changing without hurting the themes, which is definitely true. His next big bullet point: this is not his first time adapting King. Gerald's Game and Dr. Sleep are probably the most challenging projects Flanagan has tackled regarding the adapting a novel. Both of them had major drawbacks for different reasons. Gerald's Game had widely been called unadaptable, consisting mostly of a woman handcuffed to bedposts, remaining in one room for the majority of the story. Putting that onto screen would have been a challenge, and Flanagan did that, making one of the most iconic and faithful Stephen King adaptations to an extent, enhancing the novel's themes about being a survivor.
Yeah.
And he says Dr. Sleep should not exist. It is rather surprising and welcome that it does. A passion project in Flanagan, he needed not only to respect the source material for both books, but he also had Kubrick's original take on The Shining, as well as how much it's known in pop culture to deal with as well. It was an immensely fine line to walk. In fact, Flanagan noted that he only moved forward with the project when King gave his blessing, and even got King himself to reevaluate his thoughts on Kubrick's The Shining after seeing Dr. Sleep. He also handles changing elements quite well. none feel out of character or thematically out of touch from the novel it is based on. When adapting works like this, Flanagan clearly spends a lot of time and effort crafting the same story to a visual language of film, which, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I need to read Gerald's Game still, but you were commenting on that when we were watching it, just like how some elements were different, but I don't think there was ever a time where you were like, that's kind of a shitty thing that he changed.
No, it was all improvement for, and I don't say improvement meaning that it was better than how the book was written. It was well done to show it with internal monologue, because that's what almost the entire book is her talking to herself, or her thinking to herself inside her head. But what he did is he introduced like a strong mental image of herself, and then her dead late husband, who were talking to her.
We've talked about how much of the first book of Dark Tower is very internal.
Yep.
I'd say a high percentage. I'd say 40-50% of that book is internal.
Oh, higher than that, 60-70.
I just thought of it now, though, with the Gerald's Game. So do we think that maybe Court and his dad might play maybe bigger parts
like
on
sitting
screen?
at the bar with him, talking with him? Watch your back, maggot. And he looks up into the mirror and sees the guy coming up behind him with the knife.
Yeah.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I never thought about it until this is now, but having Gerald's Game fresh in my mind, like, because that's what you just hit that nail on the head perfectly, is like so much internal monologue. You can't do that in film. But what he did then is, by having those personifications of her dead husband and herself in a stronger state, allowed allowed Flanagan to basically unfold all of that internal stuff and play it out audibly. They're talking
and visually, where you
yeah.
have a character that's like, obviously that's a different Jesse, because the character is chained to handcuffed to the bed.
Yeah,
her makeup's a mess. She had been crying.
Yeah,
her hair's all messed up. But the other one, we even commented on this during the hangout.
Yeah,
immaculate hair, makeup's perfect. She hasn't been crying. You can obviously tell the two difference between the characters.
Yeah,
but if you do Roland and you do a Stephen and you do a Court,
yeah,
all of a sudden you open up the possibilities also of having more characters in the first book than just Roland and Jake.
Yeah.
Imagine if Roland's sitting there at the campsite talking to Jake, and Court's sitting over here talking to him as well, and he's like looking, and he's like, Jake's like,
and see, no, I wouldn't. I would never have Roland look, because I think it would be so normal to him by that point
that he would just listen.
But at a certain point, maybe Jake starts to cry, and whether it be Court or Steven, that's like, you need to comfort him. Like just because we know what kind of Roland is in those early stages.
What if you had Gabriel, not Gabrielle.
Yeah.
What if you had his mom show up there?
You have 3.
Dude, what if you had like 8 or 9? Have fucking Alan and Cuthbert, and have just a rotating cast of people who would show up in different situations. Sheb breaks in. Right behind Sheb is Steven, just like, so disappointing. And he just walks away, like he's standing in the doorway behind Sheb. Sheb comes rushing into the room, and then there's Stephen Deshane or someone who makes a comment and then just turns and just walks away.
In that moment of saving Jake or not, who would you have there? Maybe even asking a question like, "What are you going to do here?"
Susan.
That's that's a good one.
Imagine Jake just hanging there, like it's a shot from above. You have Jake hanging there, and imagine it changing to Susan hanging there. And he's like, well, I've already sacrificed her once, and then turns and walks away.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Let's see. Carol says, I think out of the best case scenario, we see Dark Tower on the small screen very late 2024, 2025. Just pop in my head, so throwing it out there. Yeah, I think that, like, hopefully we can get a green light sometime this year, but even that would put us into 2024, well into 2024, before we'd probably see it hitting the screen. Probably late, like, winter time, 2024. Yeah. Or, yes, maybe potentially into early 2025. But that's assuming we get a green light here, I don't know, probably the next, 4 or 5 months, maybe.
Oh, Mike says his mom with Jake.
Yeah, could be. That's what I'm saying. I think that's an interesting spot.
Don't do it, Roland. And he looks at her, and he can't listen to her after everything that she did and everything.
But to me, to me though, I would never have him look at them, because to him that's all just the normal. But he would play off the emotion of what they're saying. But I would never have him looking over at him, because to him at this point that's long time. Mm-hmm. He's used to these people on his shoulder. But you would see him going through the emotions of the decision as these people are talking, maybe even 2. What if it's like Gabrielle and then Cord on the other side? You need to catch him. You need to catch him. Like this is your only chance.
This is your only chance to get him, maggot.
Yeah,
let him fall.
Yeah, like dude, that like devil, angel, and
what
devil.
What does one
right?
boy matter for the whole Dark Tower? That kind of thing.
That's
and then
it's an interesting thought. I'm glad we watched Gerald's game now.
Yeah.
I'm glad we watched it because I don't think I've ever thought about that before, but that could be like batshit crazy, but like in the best kind of way because so much of the story is Roland's internal model. I mean, even past the first book, there's whole times where like Roland's thinking about like not trusting Eddie and stuff, and like can I trust this guy and like whatever.
Yeah.
I could see it, and it might taper off as time goes, which is another interesting character thing. As the series progresses, you see these characters less and less.
Yeah.
Because he's now plugged more into his
more
Ka-Tet.
plugged into the Ka-Tet. Exactly.
Yeah. Next up, the last point he has here is why Flanagan is perfect for the Dark Tower. It says the Dark Tower series has been in development hell for a while, frequently failing to ever get started. So it came as quite a shock when Mike Flanagan announced that he has the rights to the series and is planning to adapt it himself. The only project that managed to slip through the cracks and get made in the past was the Rush 2017 film that bombed and was quickly forgotten about. Barring the ill-fated 2017 film starring Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey, serving as both a messy adaptation and a sequel, and an unaired pilot from the planned series at Amazon Prime, all signs point to the Dark Tower project. All signs point to all Dark Tower projects being dead at the moment. Now it seems there might be a chance at seeing something once again, and it's a good chance since it's in the hands of the master of horror, Mike Flanagan. The Dark Tower will always be a difficult one to adapt into live action, simply because it spans so widely within genre. A fantasy story at the heart, but it also has major helping of horror, sci-fi, western, all within it. One could not do the Dark Tower without one of those elements. They're all inherently part of it. Beyond that, many of the aspects can downright be weird and not work out in live action, like in other King books, in other King book to movie adaptations, notably the finale of It. That's always been hard to adapt properly. There's always the additional fact that some things will inevitably have to be cut or changed for the good of the show. It's just how adaptations work. So why is Mike Flanagan so perfect for the job? Because he's done it before.
Yeah.
What Flanagan seems to be great at is reining in King's weirder, absurdist elements, just enough for them to work on screen, but keeping the spirit of them the same. Much of Dr. Sleep's finale is very different from the books, but it really respects the themes of recovery. Flanagan even delivered on how some members of the True Knot die, called cycling, where their skins become transparent. Clearly, Flanagan is open to keeping some of the odder elements of the King word. Yeah. Which is true. So he kind of balances it out a little bit. Like it's some of the really crazy. Like, dude, when I first read it, did I ever think that you would see cycling on screen? I didn't. I figured that would get removed. There's just how the fuck do you even?
I was thinking they would.
How do you execute that?
Turn to dust.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he fucking did it, and I was like, holy shit.
Agamorphy says in the chat, it amazes me. Not only does he talking about Flanagan, follow through on the adaptation, but the changes he does makes the books make the story better.
Yes, exactly. And then it says, fans of the Dark Tower can now look forward to hearing more developments on this project in the future. While much of it is still left on the table, there is no guarantee it will be made. It is nice to know that this beloved series is in such capable hands. Flanagan is clearly very emotionally invested in the adaptation, and he has wanted to get it going for many years. Now might just be the time for him to have a good chance at getting the project going. If anyone can do the justice to the Dark Tower, Mike Flanagan is the one for the job. And amen. Yeah. I just think it was a perfect encapsulation of basically what we've talked about over the last year. Yeah. Right. To finally bring it down into a tight nutshell of why it would be great.
Nice little summary of what we've been saying for a year about Flanagan.
Yeah. Now we got one last article here, and we can go through it quickly. But casting the Man in Black for Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower show. Somebody did a whole article on just the Man, because it's interesting. It's a very interesting character. And in the Discord earlier, it was brought up. And I did not get an article. I had an article I found that actually brought it up, but I didn't actually end up sharing it because it wasn't one of these that I ended up really wanting. But somebody brought up in the Discord Ewan McGregor as the Man in Black. That's an interesting.
That's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's an interesting choice for sure. Not in this article, unfortunately, but that is a very interesting choice. But this is by Katie Rath from Screen Rants on January 3rd, 2023. If nothing else, this is our first article of 2023 that was written in 2023. She says the upcoming Mike Flanagan horror TV series will follow Roland Shane on his mythic quest, but there is no Roland without the Man in Black. The Man in Black goes by many names, but the one most well-known is Randall Flagg, also appearing in Stephen King's The Stand. The Man in Black seeks nothing but chaos and anarchy, acting as the main antagonist to Roland Deschain. The Man in Black is a powerful, evil sorcerer who is quasi-immortal and has had his hands in many horrific events leading to the Dark Tower. Every good story needs a good villain, and these are some of the perfect actors for the job. And some of these are interesting choices. The first one, Ian McShane. So he says, if Mike Flanagan were going to go more book accurate route for the Stephen King TV adaptation, then Ian McShane is a perfect actor for the role. The classically trained British actor has a piercing stare and a menacing tone that would perfectly encapsulate the Man in Black and his manipulative doings. McShane has often proven himself to be a formidable villain in the past, playing roles like the Machiavellian saloon owner Al Swearingen, Swearingen, I don't know how to say it, in Deadwood. In a lighter fare, he's also put the swashbuckling hat to play Blackbeard in Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean on Strange Tides. McShane is a big-name actor in the both cinematic and the theatrical worlds, getting his first big break in Heathcliff's in the 1967 BBC version of Wuthering Heights. Since then, he has had his hand in major properties like Game of Thrones, John Wick, American Gods. Ian McShane is a highly decorated actor who would seamlessly slide into Stephen King's Dark Tower world as the evil sorcerer. His baritone voice and rugged mannerisms would complement the character of the Man in Black in innumerable ways, and it'd be easy to envision him in the role. I think that's a good pick. His voice is one I love.
Mike wants to know, where's that picture from?
I don't know. It was from the article. I don't know where it actually came from, but I do.
So that's from the article itself. So they probably made that.
I do appreciate it. I hope it's a real thing. Him with crows and whatnot. It's such a happy picture.
No.
Next one, actually, a repeat. Jeremy Davies.
Oh.
From the early article mentioned the same guy too. It says Jeremy Davies most recently appeared in the as Terrence in The Black Phone, but his portrayal of the cult leader Charles Manson in the 2004 TV movie Helter Skelter is a perfect precursor to the part of the Man in Black, which I resent that connection there. The Man in Black is known for being a powerful silver-tongued manipulator, and who better to draw inspiration from than a figure like Charles Manson? Davies has proved to be that he has that creep factor to take on the character as the unsavory Randall Flagg, and his overall aesthetic doesn't hurt either. So she's also saying that yes, he is also somewhat attractive, which could work out for Flagg as well.
Perfect to play the villain.
Davies has been in numerous blockbusters such as Twister, which I don't remember him in Twister. And Saving Private Ryan.
He's one of the good guys. He's like the radio guy, isn't he?
He might be. You know what? Actually, also, it just hit me. Do you have an IMDb account, or do you just look at IMDb?
I just look.
Okay, so I just found out recently, because I signed onto my account onto my phone, you need to get an account, and you need to start ranking movies that you've seen. Because if you do that, I just learned recently, if you then go to an actor, it'll say you might know them from, and it'll show you the movies you've rated. Because if you've rated a movie, you've seen it. So if you're ever like, I know this guy, where do I know it from? If you actually put the work in to rate movies you've seen, IMDb will actually tell you straight up, like, oh, you know this guy, you've seen this guy in Scarface, you've seen him in this, and like,
okay.
And I was like, dude, that's fucking genius. So,
hi, Alan.
But yeah, and then it says Saving Private Ryan, which we mentioned earlier in the chat.
Yeah.
But it's probably most recognized for playing Dickie Bennett in Justified. His time on that series in particular has shown how easily he fits into the Western or the Wild West setting, which is the general tone of the Dark Tower series as a whole. Imagine Jeremy Davies as the walking dude as easy as his swagger and seediness paints a complete picture. So I don't know about all that slander in there, but...
Alan says fashionably late as usual, even though we started like 3 hours early.
We did start super early.
So it's not your fault this time, Alan. It's our fault.
Next up is a very interesting choice. Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
He says Ethan Hawke as the grabber in the Black Phone was particularly terrifying, and he could easily bring that same energy to the Man in Black. Hawke has had an illustrious career, appearing in nearly every genre and playing everything from heroes to villains. His time in The Magnificent Seven as Goodnight Robino proves he can portray the spirit of a hardened Westerner and wanderer, and notable character traits of the Man in Black. Actor Ethan Hawke has proven that he's more than just a one-note villain, especially with the Black Phone. There's multiple notes to the Black Phone.
There's a There's a movie where he plays like a sociopath serial killer with Angelina Jolie. I can't remember what it is, but he was terrifying in that too.
Yeah. It says Hawk has the ability to take on complex roles like that of Randall Flagg and make it into something more than just being evil for the sake of evil. He's also no stranger to the more supernatural horror affairs, like when he portrayed Ellison Oswalt in the Scott Derrickson's horror film Sinister. Ethan Hawke would be an incredible addition to Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower series, and he'd make for a very intense Man in Black. Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah.
Next up, Henry Thomas.
Yep.
Figure that might pop up. It says most know Henry Thomas as Elliot from E.T., but the frequent Mike Flanagan collaborator has shown that child actors can successfully migrate into the adult acting world. While Thomas doesn't often take roles as a villain, as villains, instead opting for more sympathetic characters like Hugh Crane in The Haunting of Hill House, he has proven that he can do creepy by playing Jesse's father, Tom, in Flanagan's other King adaptation, Gerald's Game, which we just watched yesterday. Honestly, I had completely forgotten that entire element, so watching that yesterday was like, oh man. It's quite possible that Flanagan would want to use his one of his regulars, and Thomas is a great choice for the Man in Black. She found a pretty good creepy picture of him here too.
Yeah.
While he is much more soft-spoken than the other contenders, this could work for in Henry Thomas's favor. The Dark Tower's Man in Black isn't scary because he's over the top, but rather because he manipulates events from the sidelines, coercing others to do his to his side through a more subtle means. Henry Thomas is perfect in this regard, as his quiet nature would actually work to his advantage, and certainly he has the talent to take on the infamous Stephen King villain. Yeah, I can't disagree. And it's a big role for him too.
Yeah.
Next, and then last up, we got Rahul Kohli, which again I mentioned
As Flag?
I mentioned I almost put him as Flag too. Most recognized Rahul Kohli from Mike Flanagan productions, such as his character Sheriff Hassan in Midnight Mass, which I will say that and the young preacher are the two MVPs of that show for me.
Yeah.
They're co-MVPs and they're both so fucking incredible.
It was amazing.
I've been doing some reading because there's been some other stuff that I didn't cover in this episode. I think Midnight Mass rewatch has to come at some point because I only watched it when it first came out. You watch it, end up watching it months and months later. I told you to watch, but you finally got around to it. But I think it's way fresher for you because every time we talk, you're just like, and then Midnight Mass, you always bring it up.
Yeah.
It just makes me think like I think I'm not remembering enough of it, and it's I remember it being amazing. So
it's really good.
I think especially with a couple of these couple of these actors. Probably worth doing. It says, or Owen in The Haunting of Bly Manor. Again, if Flanagan wants to cast someone from his talented collaboration pool, then Kohli is a great choice. The actor has yet to play a major villain, but there's no reason he couldn't start now. The Man in Black is equally mysterious as he is formidable, and Kohli has both the look and the stature to highlight the evil sorcerer's mysterious nature. I think somewhere mentioned he was like 6'2", 6'3", something like that.
Yeah,
so he's
pretty big.
For actors, he's a towering force here. Kohli's time as in the cast of Midnight Mass proves his ability to play a hardened figure. Sheriff Hassan is obviously no villain, but Kohli's portrayal of the complex characters proves he can take on difficult roles. Rahul Kohli as Randall Flagg would be an entirely fresh take on the character, who's already been previously cast by two actors such as Matthew McConaughey and Alexander Skarsgård. Casting the Man in Black for Flanagan's Dark Tower series won't be an easy for the studios, as the iconic Stephen King villain is steeped in the author's deep mythos, arguably one of his most well-known characters.
Yeah, he's 6'4".
6'4", yeah, which he may as well be 7 foot in Hollywood. I mean,
in Hollywood,
when Hollywood, everyone's like 5'5" to 5'9", you know, for the most part. So, because my favorite thing is Lucas had to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on episode 1 because all the sets were built. And then they cast 6'1", I think, Liam Neeson, and then so all the sets were then a little bit too short, so they had to like add 6 inches, and it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then we're talking 6'1" here. That's not like
that's my
freakishly
height.
tall.
That's how tall I am. Yeah.
But yeah, so if he's 6'4", like good God. But yeah, that's all the articles we got. I've got a couple.
Ethan Hawke was a good villain in Moon Knight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the bad guy in Moon Knight.
That's right. I forgot. I thought there were some other bad roles for him, but all I could think of was a bunch of heroic turns that he had. But no, I think Black Phone though is
Black Phone is.
Yeah. That was a good one. Okay, so next up we've got Uncle Stevie Recommends. So he actually starts off here back in January 1st, actually. He says, the best novel I read in 2022 was The Deluge by Stephen Malarkey. It will be published on January 10th of this year, so King got one of those advanced copies. This is what the world is going to look like in the next 10 years if changes aren't made, more terrifying than The Stand, because it's real. Based on this tweet, I bought it, and I actually thought it was already out because I missed the part where he talked about the date, and it was like pre-order. I'm like, what? So I'm a little bit into it now. It's very strange so far. It's not entirely, but it jumps all over the place, kind of like The Stand early on, jump through characters. But Audible has different actors for each thing. So these voices are changing chapter to chapter, and in some cases, there's conversations happening, and the voices are changing between readers, which is really weird. And also, some of the subchapters, or some of the chapters, I guess, not subchapters. That's the Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Some of the chapters are in second person narrative, where it's like,
and then I walk down the hall.
It's like then you enter the room and see your mom laying on the couch, and because first person's like then I enter the room and look around. Third person's the over the shoulder type whatever. But second person is like probably the most rare of types. But I'm enjoying it so far, but it is very all over the place.
Yeah,
because it's just jumping through all these different characters, and doesn't seem like the plot's really moved anywhere yet, because I'm thinking he's still just establishing all these characters. But so far I am enjoying it, though, as much as there's not a lot going on yet. It's been good so far, but I read it based on I started it based on this. So good recommendation for a read. And then for a watch, Stephen King mentions Kaleidoscope on Netflix. He says, grade A entertainment. I suggest watching chronologically. So the story on this one is that this is the thing that Netflix has, and the unique thing about it is there's however many episodes. I don't know if it's 10 or whatever, but I think it's less. I think it's like 8. But what it is Netflix actually randomizes the episodes, and it's like a heist. And the only thing that's for sure is the last episode. The last episode will play last for everyone, but all the previous ones basically are in run up to the heist, and it goes anywhere from 25 years before the heist to like 6 months before the heist. And what Netflix and the filmmakers have done with this is that they've made it in a way to where all of those earlier episodes can be randomized. And so Peter
40,000 ways to watch the episodes, different ways you can watch it.
So if Peter watches it, he might get one order. I could watch it and get a completely different order. But apparently it all works together so long as the last episode's the last episode you watch. King's saying to watch it in chronological order, but I think I would be all about that randomization. I don't know. Sounds really interesting, but King says it's grade A entertainment, so maybe check that out. And also the good thing is it's Netflix, is that it's a limited series, so they can't cancel it.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done. So
Phew.
There was someone on like social media somewhere that was about this. I'm like, I don't know how anyone can get to a Netflix show. Like they just cancel everything. I'm like, well, this is a limited series. I'm like, everything on Netflix is a limited series.
Yeah.
That was my response. I'm
If
like,
everything is a limited series, nothing is an original series.
oh man. So that's that. What did I miss in the chat here? Anything? Agamorphous has recently finished Bly Manor and did not recognize him from Midnight Mass. Yeah,
That's good. That means that he's got range.
Blends in. Yeah, I don't remember him from Bly Manor. I remember him in Midnight Mass, but like
I've never watched Bly Manor, so
I need it. That's another one. I'm very vague on that one, so that's definitely one I need to rewatch at some
You've been
point.
talking about Haunting of Hill House for.
I did watch it though.
Oh, you did watch it?
Yeah, and I've dedicated now. Started on Thanksgiving night. Mm-hmm. That's gonna be my tradition from now on.
For Haunting of Hill House. Thanksgiving.
Started on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So that'll be my new tradition.
We'll see how long he lasts.
Oh, it'll last.
Yeah.
Getting into a food coma and then watching some ghouls.
Yeah.
And that poor kid getting lowered into the basement there. So next up,
emails. It's the emails. Tad's gonna read us what people wrote to us.
You know that's not getting deleted, right?
God damn it. All these years later.
Indeed. So we actually did not get any emails on the year-end bash because the Dreamcasting went long. We did have calls as well. We also had I think the Dreamcasting. We probably should have split the Dreamcasting, to be honest. But it all worked out. But we didn't have time for the emails. So all these emails that we're covering today are ones that we should have covered in that episode. So some of them are talking about stuff that were from that episode, but still worth covering. So let's go ahead and go over to the Palaver slide here. So Ethan from Chattanooga, which is a fun one to say.
I love Chattanooga.
Chattanooga. That's a fun name to say. He says, "Hi, Tad and Peter."
Kyle.
He says, "I write to you, Size, on 4 important matters to give you something for Peter to sing the email jingle about." Because I think he sent it around the time we said we were out of emails.
We were out there for a little bit.
He says, number one, I'm sure you'll be covering the news on the Mike Flanagan's likely adaptation of The Dark Tower. So, yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
We have spoken of almost nothing else since that was announced. He says, I have long thoughts that most of the book series is unfilmable and didn't necessarily want a film or television adaptation, but if anyone can do it, Mike Flanagan can. I look forward to hearing your reactions, which they've been numerous. We had the emergency episode, and then pretty much the entire year-end bash was dedicated to that. So definitely, and there'll probably be in most of this episode and many episodes in the future probably
Hopefully.
talking about it. Even if nothing happens, dude, this is going to be a conversation point for a bit.
Oh yeah.
And then he says, Tad mentioned a while back that the Simpsons would be doing an It-themed episode. I loved it, and I've been waiting to hear what my fellow Simpsons fan Tad had to say about it. I actually haven't watched it yet. I do need to watch it. Still. I am behind on a lot
For
of stuff.
shame.
And I keep forgetting about it too, to be honest. Like but I actually told you not too long ago that we both need to watch it and then talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll look at that for February.
Watch it like the night before and then
Talk about it on that round table. I think that might be worth doing.
Okay.
Next up, and this episode I didn't think about it too much because ultimately I knew we were doing some overflow stuff. I mean, we didn't cover anything for the year-end bash except for the Dreamcasting, so I knew there'd be some news to cover as well as some other stuff. So I figured this episode wouldn't have much time, but next episode I think that'll be awesome.
next roundtable.
Yes, next roundtable because
Next episode.
No, in a fortnight we're doing the book club.
Yes.
We're going to see Oi getting ragged.
Oh.
Getting wrung like a rag.
You're the worst.
It will be in the next. It has to be, right? I've been saying that for like 3 episodes now, but
like we're getting closer. We're getting closer, and it still hasn't happened.
Not happening. Well, it's because King keeps writing these fucking subchapters that are so damn long
That's true.
that we can only cover like 2 or 3 in a episode.
Yeah.
Next up, he says, I just posted this on Twitter as well, but during your recent discussion on whether Carrie is a villain, I was thinking that reducing Carrie to heroes and villains is somewhat beside the point. As I see it, the story is about how bullying affects people, both the bullied and the bullies, and maybe also whether their town gets set ablaze by pyromancer teenagers. Yes. So, I mean, it's weird that we've never had that conversation, but it does seem like other people have too. That's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just like a thing we've discovered ourselves. Like it sounds like this has been kind of a debated thing in the King canon for a while. So
Yeah.
and then number 4, he said, here's a few nominations for the best Dark Tower moments, which I actually did get these taken down already. But he said, in the wastelands, when the Ka-Tet notices the beams in the clouds, birds, plants, etc., that bit of world building fills me with wonder every time. That's definitely a good one.
That is.
When Susanna leaves in book 7, yes, people criticize her for it, but I think it's perfectly in line with her character. And King had to get Roland alone for the end of the story to work. Besides, I would have done the same thing in her position, even if I even made it that far. So, and then next up, when Walter explains the Dark Tower and the Palaver at the end of the Gunslinger, in retrospect, that bit of cosmic worlds building, plural, is what got me hooked on the series. Which, yes, that's definitely a very popular.
Yeah.
The Palaver at the Golgotha. When we read Stephen King's diary at the end of the Song of Susanna, that's when I knew this was not just a cool fantasy series, but something deep and weird and wonderful. Which it's true, and I do love that stuff. You know how often though I get those elements confused with like interviews. God, I remember when King said this thing, and then when I ended up doing research, I'm like, God, it was the book. It was from the Dark Tower, which I don't know if those are even real.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, they're probably close to real, but I don't know if they're actually real. And then he says every time Moses Carver shows up, which is definitely true. He's awesome. And he says, thank you, Size. Ethan from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Keystone Earth, maybe.
Maybe.
That's true. Maybe he isn't. Maybe we're not. Who knows? Next up, we got Hans. He says, Heil Gunslingers, Tad and Peter, Heil. He says, I've been listening to your emergency episode with interest. However, you might have to change up a bit about the Flanagan opening, as Mazzara's pilot did open with a certain line. He said, see attached imaged. And I don't remember.
Cameras.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm going to. There we go. So, yeah.
That would have been the Amazon opening. It's okay. It's okay. Flanagan has it now. It's okay.
And
And Amazon Prime can't hurt me anymore.
And it says, and then clears up to see a desert where Roland is riding on a horse, hearing voices. So he says, thought I would let you guys know the pilot was really cool because he actually did see it.
Nice.
He says, in case you haven't read it yet, here's my review of said pilot. I wrote it for the German Stephen King fan page in English as well as my native German to reach as many people as possible, and I'll have that link in the show notes. He says, to me, Mike Flanagan is a good choice to move on with it, and I think the Midnight Club kid could be a young Roland if he's as much involved in Flanagan's work as you say he is, and it certainly sounds like it, because he's been in a couple things now, Midnight Mass and then Midnight Club, and then we had that interview with Flanagan where he was just raving about him. Yeah. So definitely seems like there's going to... I'd be shocked if he doesn't end up in Dark Tower somehow. I don't know where, but somehow. He might even just be someone mowed down in Tull. Who knows? He says, I saw the TikTok video Flanagan shared. Just seeing his grin when he says he has the rights indicates what a great deal it is for him. I hope it will start sooner rather than later, and hopefully those Amazon executives who said no last time will reconsider. This series deserves a great adaptation, and Flanagan is the right person for it. He says, I just hope they make Darabont direct a couple episodes, which has been a very big fan hope, is that they can bring Darabont out of retirement to maybe direct an episode or two, because that would be, can you imagine Frank Darabont coming out of retirement to direct a Dark Tower episode?
That would be so cool.
That would be amazing. He says that would be cool to have him involved in it as well. I think we all agree on that. And he signs off and says, long days and pleasant nights. Signed, Hans. Thank you, Hans. Okay, and then still miss my button.
Stop it.
Next up, we've got let's see, did it change? No. Okay, next we got Jordan. He says, hey guys, he says, first off, love the show. Been a listener for a while now. I just listened to the emergency episode and had a thought. Most people are speculating that it could be years before Flanagan's adaptation gets moving. But here's the thing. If Amazon signed him to their platform exclusively for any and all TV series he does, with the exception of The Dark Tower, of course, he says, then they obviously know that he is a money-making badass, which, yes.
That's why they signed him.
Indeed. He says they obviously want to make sure everything he does goes to them. Now, if he's already making his plans of adapting the series and this being his dream project, I feel like Amazon wouldn't want to risk him going all in on the Dark Tower and going to some other platform and just ending up so busy he doesn't make anything for them for a while. I feel like Amazon would be stupid not to just give him the green light and let him go all in with them on it. I feel like we might be getting a full green light on it far sooner than we think. Maybe there's a fast track coming. What are your thoughts? And I think I've said it this whole episode.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can see a green light early this year.
That's best case scenario.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get my hopes up.
Because
Jordan's right.
Because of all that logic. Like, because legitimately, if this is 5 seasons and 2 movies, that's like almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and also the thing is that if he has the outline and everything like that, and he has people ready to run it, he does season 1, goes and does a couple things during season 2, 3, maybe 4, and comes back for season 5 to be the showrunner for the last one.
I bet he'll be.
I saw that with Joss Whedon with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah,
he did like the first 3 seasons. Then he's like, I want to do other stuff. Here, you guys run the show, and then he popped back in for an episode or 2. Yeah, like every season.
Vince Gilligan did that too.
Exactly.
Last couple seasons of Better Call Saul, he didn't.
Yeah, you have these showrunners, but tell me the truth, Tad. The episodes that Vince Gilligan pop back in, of course, were like the best ones.
Yeah.
So you have him pop back in for Blaine. You have him pop back in for the Showdown at the Traveler's Rest episode. You have him pop back in during certain episodes. But honestly, I think that wouldn't be far-fetched, is that he gets Dark Tower up and running, has a showrunner that's running it. Yes, he has creative control of it, and he's like, hey, you make sure that this is done this way. He has someone he brought with him to Amazon.
Yeah, with it being his dream, though, I don't see him wanting to move away from. That's why I think it makes sense that's why it makes sense for Amazon to get in on this, because ultimately this is his dream project.
Because then they would still get something out of him while waiting for him to do what's in the contract.
Yeah, they wouldn't have him doing this for HBO or Apple TV Plus, and all the while they're sitting there going, "Oh, we can't wait for our project."
Yeah, when is he going to do something for us?
Yeah. No, that's good point though, Jordan, and he signs off there. So but I do think that maybe an earlier green light than later is potentially what we may have coming. I'm hoping. Not that I know anything. That's just a hope, and maybe I'm just putting the positivity out there into the universe.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if we'll get an earlier green light than we think. I don't think it'll be like, oh, late November we get like a green light.
You're thinking like first two,
Yeah.
like first half of the year.
Yeah, that's my hope thought.
I hope
it makes sense to me.
Trying not to get my hopes up too high.
Yeah. Oh, I will. I'm ready to be hurt again.
Yeah. You're a glutton for punishment.
To quote Michael Scott, I'm ready to be hurt again.
Yeah.
And then last up, we have Max from Scotland.
Hey,
emailed
birthday
in.
boy.
Yeah, had his birthday yesterday.
Yeah.
He was the one that picked Gerald's game.
Yeah.
And then Peter and I both drank some Scottish soda.
Yeah. Iron Brew.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. That was good, too.
It was.
Now I'm sad that I don't have a cheap access to it because I would probably drink more.
My wife liked it, too.
I'll have to check like World Market and a few
Yeah.
other places and see.
It's available on Amazon, though.
Yeah, not super cheap, though.
Wasn't it?
It's like $3 for a bottle or something.
Good Lord.
So then he says, "Hi, Gunslingers."
Kyle?
Hi, I said, Max here from Scotland. He said, I must sound like a broken record, but I'm sorry I've not yet sent my new listener email. It's coming in the new year, promise. And he has a little smiley grinning emoji there. He says, I also wanted to send my favorite moments of the series, which again, I did get these taken down before it was too late. I'll be at my friend's house for New Year's Eve, so I'll get to listen to the show in the new year. Good way to start 2023. This is my choice. May not be the most original, but I can't look past Eddie facing down Balazar's mob in book 5, which that's a different pick than everyone else seems to be doing the tower showdown at the Leaning Tower. But no, that's still a good one though, especially Andolini, he says. Because I will say honestly, in my eyes, I'm kind of the same. I actually think that shootout at that gas station or whatever it is, I think I actually like that more than the Leaning Tower personally.
Yeah.
I just the fucking weirdness of it, because they come in there and suddenly Andolini's there, and as a reader we're all like disoriented, like, wait, I saw that guy die. And it's like, well, wait a minute, we're in an earlier period of time. And like,
this is before that.
and that is a brutal fucking shootout too. That whole thing is insane.
People get cut down from the inside the grocery store. You have he lights a fire. They shoot people coming around the gas. It's
brutal, man. And then he says,
Eddie gets shot there, doesn't he? In the leg.
I don't remember that.
I think he does get shot in the leg.
Interesting. It says that it just has everything. The signature razor sharp wit, backed up by sheer badass gunslingerness. It makes me think of that famous gif of De Niro as Al Capone in The Untouchables. And he says, what a film that was, by the way. And he says, I want him dead. I want his family dead.
Yeah.
So, and so I guess he's focusing more on maybe some of Eddie's place and all that. He says very few people can strike fear into the heart of someone like Jack Andolini, but he very much does in that scene, and it just sums up his transformation from a downtrodden addict to a beast of a gunslinger so well. He says, anyway, good luck with the show tomorrow. Not that you need it. It's always great, and I absolutely love listening to it. Well, we appreciate those kind words, certainly. And I think it was a good episode.
Yeah.
I don't think we got punchy or anything.
No.
Long episode and all.
No.
He says, can't wait for what's ahead in 2023, gentlemen. Long days and pleasant nights to ye. And yes, indeed, we're very hopeful for the year here. Going to be a good year, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Flanagan's Dark Tower, #.
It's the year of Flanagan.
Yes, indeed. But that's all we got for the emails. So that's pretty much going to do it for this episode. Let's go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick.
Okay.
If you guys want to find the show, or if you want to subscribe to the show, you can do that on any podcasting service of your choice. Spotify, Stitcher, Apple podcasting, Audible, all kinds of fun stuff now. Amazon Music. You can join us for live streams over here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Be part of the conversation like everyone here. I also see an emoji there from Alan. Thank you for that, Alan. Stop it. And then if you want to, if you can as well, subscribe, rate, and review us on Indio Services, and on YouTube side, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Those are things like today. We end up recording early. The notifications will let you know that we're about to go live. If maybe you missed the social media things that we had to reschedule, then with the subscribes and likes and stuff, we always appreciate those. And then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that over at darktowerpalaver.com. And if you want to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. Then if you want to contact us, look at Alan's doing an old school emoji now.
That's a non-emoji. That's not an emoji.
I mean,
It doesn't count.
it does. It's only the yellow that makes you angry.
Just like the emoji itself. It
little
doesn't have to
yellow
be yellow.
guys.
I mean, there's like red and all the different ones.
Like
so.
a little devil face.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like the Randall Flagg when he transforms, when he gets all pissed.
When he's evil.
But if you want to contact us, Peter can let you know the ways to do that, aside from his slander here. Flag.
Best way, like many of the fans here today, email us. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. But you can also reach us on social media. Our Twitter is @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. And then our Facebook is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. Our Instagram is Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/user/Dark Tower Palaver. Don't you push it.
Oi. What? What do you think I'm going to push?
I don't know what you have over there anymore, and I don't trust you.
Oi. Why not?
Because you could have anything on there. You could have Eddie on there dying. You could have Jake dying.
Yeah,
Oi dying.
It's true. It's not Oi. I told you I'd remove that. I'm a man of my
doesn't
word.
mean that you're not going to put it back. I removed it. I put it back.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good technicality there. I like that. But yeah, thank you guys all for joining us. Everyone here in the chat. Love having you guys as part of the conversation as always. We will be back in a fortnight for book club number 22.
Deep into the Wastelands book.
Yeah, pretty close to the end of the Wastelands.
Yeah.
We
were
only
over 75% last time.
22 out of 25 is what
Subchapters.
is what it looks like. No, parts.
Oh, parts.
The Wastelands, we have up to part 25 should be the very end of the thing. So we're on 22. So we're getting there. The book 3 is circling the drain here. We're getting close to the end. We're about to get into good old Blaine and have some fun. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back for part 22 of the Wastelands on the 28th, which is a fortnight from today. And should be back at normal time. And we'll sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
Alrighty, all you guys on the YouTube side, thank you guys and girls for joining us. It's been awesome having all you guys with all the conversations, emojis, input. No, I don't know if we had any, or yeah, actually, I was going to say, I don't know if we had any corrections today, but I couldn't remember James Cromwell's name, and that was brought up in the chat. So yeah, even help, even you guys giving us help and correction. But always fun. We'll see you guys in a fortnight as we come back for book club number 22.
Yep. Bye,
see
everyone.
you guys.